Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
Hello, Mac Pack. Welcome to the program. My name is Mac Worley III. I'm your host. This is On the Move. This is a show that attempts to inspire you to stand up for your rights. We have a lot to get to today, so we're not going to screw around. We're going to move right into our first segment. This is the Mac Attack. Here we go.
It's time for the Mac Attack!
Wow. We have a lot to get to today. This is a segment where we talk about outrageous events in the news, and the only thing that could be more outrageous than what is going on with our economy, the global economy, is the fact that no one is talking about it. No one's acting like it's happening. No one is talking like there's anything to be worried about. If you hear all the talking heads, and this goes also to Fox. I will tell you, I happen to watch Fox News from time to time. I watch all the news channels when I can. When I have an opportunity, I'll mosey on over to MSNBC Communist and MSNBC or CNN, the Communist News Network. But look, no one's telling you what you need to know. And the poo is about to hit the fan. Today's episode is Welcome to the Global Depression. We're already in it. Now, you might not necessarily feel it yet because these bubbles haven't burst, but they are slowly bursting right now. And there's a lot of stuff we're going to get to today. We have a whole slew of things. And there's no way, absolutely no way that I'm going to have time to get to all of this here. The first, let me go through the featured topics. And by the way, I should do some housekeeping here. Check us out on our website, OnTheMoveShow.com. Please follow us to get up-to-the-date podcasts. If we have an emergency podcast, and I've been really thinking about doing an emergency podcast in the middle of the week, so follow us on Spreaker, Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. That's SPREAKER.com/OnTheMoveShow. You'll get an email every time we're broadcasting live. That way you won't miss out. And even if you do, just an FYI, you can always access it on the archive on Spreaker. So you won't miss out on anything. You can follow us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Follow us on Twitter @OnTheMoveShow. Subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. And okay, so, and also, if you guys have anything you want to say, anything on your mind at all, please give us a call. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that is 360-450-5625. Here's our featured topics for today. We're going to go right into some of these segments that I've been promising we were going to get to, and this is going to be the first half hour, maybe 45 minutes of the show. We're going to talk about what might an American presidency be like, or I'm sorry, what might America be like with Ted Cruz or Hillary Clinton as the president. And then I also want to talk about the global citizen movement versus the realist geopolitical worldview. And I'm going to explain what these things are and why I feel that the global citizen movement is dangerous. The second hour, we're going to be joined by a special guest, Tony Clark. He's going to give us his take on the economy. I want to talk about these refugees that are literally raping and pillaging in Europe. And this is a warning. It's time to accelerate your preps. We're going to talk about why, with the global economic collapse that is currently underway. We're going to talk about an article that's talking about the price of oil being lower than a gallon of milk for a gallon of gasoline, and barrels of oil now actually cost more than the oil itself to fill it up. So it's unbelievable. We have massive layoffs and store closures that we're going to cover. Get ready for civil unrest, and I'm going to give you some things to look for and how you can find them. Also, I want to talk about Michael Bloomberg considering a presidential run as an independent and how that may affect the race. Then we have a really important story that I have to make time for today, how the central banks are looking to move to a cashless society. Why is this a big deal? Why do you need to know about this? And then in addition, if I don't get to all this, at least I'm putting it out there. Please check these stories. They're out there right now. This is an NRA-ILA story. The feds have stopped processing NICS denial appeals. These are the National Instant Background Check denials. So people will get denied, and they're actually denying them an appeal And many people throughout America get denied wrongfully on this, and now there's just no due process at all for that. And this, I'm not sure if this may be a bit too much. I think my eyes are a little bigger than my stomach in this case, but I want to talk about some comparisons to what we see now in our society and contrast it with the impeachment of President Andrew Johnson and talk about what it was like back then and some similarities. Anyway, we got a lot more to get to, so you guys don't want to miss anything today. So let's go ahead and just start right in. The global citizen movement here. The realist perspective and a global citizen movement. These are two completely contrary concepts, and it's important to understand this. So first of all, what is a global citizen? I'm sure you've heard it, and you can probably understand just by the name. It's that we belong to the world. We're all citizens of the world, and that this kind of goes into line with the people who say there's no such thing as good or evil, no black or white. As far as it's all shades of gray. It's the I can't remember what they call it. It basically, you can't really judge any society or culture because you're not part of it, and yeah. So that's basically the global citizen movement. They don't want you to. And again, I'm not specifically referring to nationalism, but they don't want you to identify with your country. They don't want you to make any judgments against anyone. They want you to consider yourself part of the greater collective. This is essentially collectivism, and this is the globalization of collectivism. We've been seeing collectivism in our country and around the world, and this one has been really starting to grow. And I'll tell you, again, as a college student, I've taken college courses where they're talking about global citizenship. I don't want a global citizenship. I don't know about you, but I don't want a global citizenship. In fact, I honestly don't want any citizenship. I would prefer, and I'm not a sovereign citizen. Just to put that out there, I'm not a sovereign citizen. I don't portray that. And I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, and he was talking about the sovereign citizen movement and asking me why I'm not really a fan of it. And I told him, I was like, well, the whole idea that you're an individual and you're going to join a movement, isn't that kind of a contrary idea? That's what I think anyway. I am an individual, and I don't necessarily want to be a citizen of somewhere. Now, I want to identify with my community and with my state, with my country, and with my fellow countrymen, but I don't necessarily. When you say citizen, you're implying government. You're implying, control, that kind of aspect, and it's just not something that I am a fan of. So, no, I don't want to be part of any global citizen movement because that would imply there's a global government. There's some hierarchy above these citizens, and I prefer to keep things at the lowest level, the individual. First of all, governments, we all know, are full of fraud, waste, abuse, and power corrupts. And the more power that's centralized into fewer hands, the worse your life is going to be. Government doesn't care about you. It's going to be harder for you to influence that government. So I'm not a fan of the global citizens movement. But let me tell you a realist geopolitical worldview. First of all, what is realism? Realism is essentially what happens in the real world. You look at things at how they actually are, not how you wish they ought to be, or how you think people will actually react when you're talking about human behavior. So one aspect of realism is that you know that people are generally, now there may be some exceptions to this behavior, but people are generally going to do what is in their own best interest, or the best interest of whatever they think is best for them. So if they think that it's best for their country and therefore it's best for them, then they're going to do what is in their own best interest. And even things like acts of charity, all right? From a realist perspective, when you give to charity, you may be doing something that is not necessarily in your own best interest by giving up your money, but at the same time, you may feel good about that. You may get that warm feeling inside from doing some good for others. It just may be something that you like to do, and therefore it is actually in your own best interest because you like to do it. Nobody would give to charity if they literally got nothing out of it whatsoever, to include the good feeling seeing some results of doing good for others. If you gave to charity and giving to charity actually hurt others, you wouldn't do it. You see what I mean? So you are getting something out of it, even if it's just a good feeling. Maybe it's a tax write-off too. But realism in the geopolitical worldview is essentially that people are, whether or not we admit it or not, are broken down into groups, either culturally. Sometimes we segregate ourselves through races. Sometimes we draw artificial lines around groups of people, and those borders are where we consider ourselves in a national sense, countrymen. So, in a realist point of view, people and countries are going to do things in their own best interest. And it's important to know that, and it's important to keep that in mind. So when we're talking about a realist global point of view, it's completely contrarian to a global citizen movement where it's all for the benefit of humanity. That's essentially what it is. And look, I'm not saying that people may not do things for humanity's sake. But being the fact that you are part of the human race, there is a bit of realism in that as well, because you're doing something for your own human race. So these two points of view are conflicting, because if you really believe in the global citizens movement, you really won't understand a country that is acting within their own self-interest to the detriment of others. So I think it's really important that we talk about this. Anytime somebody mentions a global citizen movement, again, I saw this in my college homework, kids these days, they are being indoctrinated as global citizens. They're being told that the Constitution doesn't matter, and that, you don't need this old, antiquated document. Governments could never turn tyrannical. In fact, the very word tyrannical is scoffed at by academics these days. Ha! Government could never do that. Government would never do that to you. And I tell you what, we're about to cut to a commercial break. But while I'm gone, I want you guys to ponder this. Why do you hate government? What about government has pissed you off? I want to hear your stories. If you have any stories, I know you're out there, and I know I really, this would help me out and give me some perspective about why government sucks. All right, so give me your phone calls. Call me. Tell me your story. Why do you not like government? 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. And we'll be right back after this break. Don't go anywhere.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, our phone lines are open. If you want to give us a call and tell us why you hate government, what is your situation, what happened to you that has bothered you about the government? What have they done? Have they Have they fined you for something frivolous? Have they told you you couldn't build something on your own property? Have they given you a ticket for something frivolous? I want to hear from you. Give us a call. The number of the show is 360-450-5625. We're talking about the global citizens movement and why, the bigger the government is, the less it's going to care about you and the harder it is for you to make an impact on that. And the reason why I'm talking about this right now is because I feel like it's incredibly important. There are going to be efforts and movements here to collectivize everyone. I honestly believe that we are at the precipice here of a total global economic collapse. Now, some people disagree. Some people think, there's no way that the U.S. dollar will ever be moved away from the global currency. There's no way that it could collapse. My argument, first of all, is that everything is so interconnected. We have never before been this interconnected with our economies. And the fact is, all of the economies, the major economies, as far as I'm aware, I don't know of anyone that's doing well except for maybe Iceland. All of the economies are doing really crappy, really subpar, to say the least. Most of them are at the edge of economic collapse themselves. But the fact that everything is so dependent on the U.S. dollar is extremely worrisome, I would say. And the fact is, if the U.S. dollar collapses, which it seems evident that this is only a matter of time, they're trying to control the collapse right now and either, one, wait until Obama's out of office, or two, allow some kind of event like a huge perhaps 9/11 style terror attack or bigger, an economic killer attack to happen. And they're doing so by bringing in Syrian refugees who are not being vetted properly and could pose a threat to our national security, in addition to the fact that they're leaving our borders wide open. And we've had many situations where Arab men have been seen crossing the border, and we have Mexican authorities saying that there's an ISIS camp just a few miles into Mexico. So they're leaving the door wide open for this attack. Even if that doesn't happen, they're trying right now to essentially create a situation where we're going to end up in a head-to-head against Russia, perhaps even China, and this is going to kick off a global war. This is what they need. They need some big event, and it's not. They don't put all their eggs in one basket. It's important to note they have all these different things that are out there waiting to see which one will happen, because they need something. A global war would be great, because they can say, especially one thing that I've heard that they're trying to do is they're saying Crimea, for example. I told you guys a while back ago that Crimea, their power stations went out, and they were out of power for a big section of Crimea. So they're blaming this on some malware from Russia, saying that Russia is the ones that were responsible for this power outage. And I think perhaps that was maybe just a test. I think that maybe was a false flag. Again, this all sounds very conspiratorial, but you have to understand, they want to put us in a head-to-head. If they can perhaps, through cyber attacks, cripple our economy that way, using the same kind of technology that they used to crash Crimea, pin that on Russia, or even if it is Russia, allow Russia to do it to us, that would be something that they'd be like, hey, we got to go get those guys. They crashed our economy. And now they've got something to blame the economic crash, not on their easy money policies, not on their horrible fiscal policies that are literally sprinting us to the cliff. No. They're not going to blame it on that. They're going to blame it on some external threat that we have to go get. And they hope that you all are stupid enough to rally behind them, wrap yourself in the flag, and say, yeah, let's go get them. I hope you're not. I think if you're in this audience, you're probably aware enough to be careful of this. But anyway, let's go ahead and move to the next topic here. I want to paint a picture here of what America might be like with Ted Cruz or Hillary Clinton as president. This is going to be, and perhaps I'm going to lump in Bernie Sanders with Hillary Clinton, although I think their policies are different, and we'll discuss that in a moment here. But anyway, so right now, the economy is going to collapse. We're talking about potentially putting boots on the ground in Syria, no-fly zones, all this stuff. You have different talk from different candidates. Essentially, the only candidate that I've been able to surmise has actually spoken out against a no-fly zone or taking action in Syria is Ted Cruz and Rand Paul, but I mean he's not really in the numbers anyway. He doesn't really have a shot. Donald Trump has said that he wants to stand back and wait and see. In my opinion, if you don't say that you don't want to do it, then you're playing it safe, in my opinion, politically speaking. So, and he's trying to basically say, I'm not saying I will, I'm not saying I won't, kind of thing like that. So, but I got a lot of other reasons that I would never vote for Trump. I've covered them before. Feel free to go back to one of our episodes, Trump Trauma, if you have any questions about why I would never vote for Donald Trump. But anyway, so Ted Cruz, if he is not a sellout, if he is what he presents himself to be, which is a constitutionalist, and if he actually wants to audit the Fed and take it to these global banking cartels, I think that we're going to see a huge collapse anyway. Like I said, this is all going to be a collapse. Now, what Ted will do, in my guess, would be, hey, things are going to be bad. You're going to have to dig in and just deal with it, because the only way out of this is for us to pay the piper. We've kicked that can down the road too far. We have to pay the piper. Ted, I hope he's not offering more handouts and free rides and more subsidies and all of these big government programs. I'm hoping he takes a laissez-faire approach to the economy, because that's the only way that we're going to dig ourselves out of this is by sweat, by labor, by manufacturing. If Ted Cruz can get the government regulation out of the way, if he can make it so Americans can actually compete in the global market, because our government isn't making it so difficult to, number one, create a job. And there's this idea that government creates jobs, and I will tell you that's just not true. Government takes jobs. That's all that they can do. They can either not do anything and let companies create the jobs, or they can take jobs, because every government job that is created takes money from the taxpayers, and that money could be used somewhere else in the economy to buy a good or a service, and therefore there would be more consumer demand, and therefore more people will be hired at jobs because there's more consumer demand. They have to meet that demand, so they hire more employees. So I'm hoping, and I don't know. I don't know Ted Cruz. I don't know what's in his heart. I don't know what's in his head. I know what he said. And if it's me right now and I have to choose between a Donald Trump and a Ted Cruz, it's not a choice at all. I'll vote for Ted Cruz. As far as Hillary Clinton is concerned, now, if we're talking about Clinton and Bernie Sanders, what we're going to hear is more of the same. They're going to say government can create jobs. They're going to try to basically increase the amount of money that is taxed from the middle class. They're going to say that they're helping the middle class by taxing the 1%, but the policies that they want, mathematically, it's just not possible for you to continue to steal and redistribute this much wealth to the lower echelon. The way that they're going to do this is to tax more from the middle class and give that money to entitlement programs to the lower class, lower income bracket. And in doing this, they ensure that they're kicking out the ladder of success from people in the middle class. You'll never be able to make it out of the middle class, because all of your income that you're making past a certain point will go towards people who are not as well off financially. And so, in theory, what they hope to do is to make a middle class, essentially, where everyone's middle class. You can't make it up to the 1%. Those 1%ers are making filthy amounts of money, and they're stealing your money through taxation. And essentially, this will not work. And they call it essentially, full employment programs, things along those lines. There's no way that the government can make full employment. What this will do is activate the parameters of the Laffer curve. For those of you who aren't aware, the Laffer curve is after a certain percentage of taxation, after they tax you past a certain amount, it begins to actually give less income in tax revenue to the government than it would if they had a lesser amount. And the reason why would this happen? Why does it even make sense, just as far as from thinking about human behavior? Why would it make sense that you would actually get less money by taxing more? Well, think about it. If you actually can just throw your hands up in defeat and say, screw this, I'll make just the same amount of money if I don't work or more, and I'll have all this free time. Wouldn't you just throw your hands up in the air? Or wouldn't you turn to a black market enterprise of some kind, something where you're working under the table and you're just completely off the books? You decide that you're just not going to play that game anymore, and you shrug the system off your shoulders like Atlas Shrugged, where you're shrugging everyone off your back. You've got so many people in the cart behind you that you're pulling. You're tired of working and having your labor stolen, so you either A, decide to stop working, or B, you decide to work underneath the table so you no longer are subjected to this tax revenue. That is essentially the Laffer curve in a nutshell. That's why. That's the human behavior aspect and element behind it. So there's no way that a Hillary Clinton or a Bernie Sanders can give all these things for free, because nothing is free. Nothing is free. They're taking money from someone else and giving it to another person. And there's so many other economic problems that come with it. Just for example, free college. All right, free college. Everything that the government subsidizes, they make it more expensive. So when you take money from one group of people and you give it to another person to go to college with, and then that person has all this subsidized money to pay for it, it means that college can now afford to charge more money, because that person can afford more money because they're getting it subsidized. You see how that works. So everything in this regard happens that way. Healthcare, when the government subsidizes healthcare, it increases the cost of healthcare. School, when the government subsidizes school, it increases the cost of schooling. This is echoes throughout everything. But more importantly, when the government steals wealth from people to give to others, they are in fact damaging economic growth. Because what happens? Well, the money that you would have had to go out and spend on things like luxuries or entertainment things, you don't have it. You have to tighten your belt, because now you have less money in your pocket, which means there's less jobs out there because less people are buying products. There's less of a consumer demand. I talked about this already. So therefore, companies have to provide layoffs. They have to lay off a bunch of their employees because there's less people coming in the store shopping, so they don't need as many people. And if there's less goods that are being purchased, then manufacturing is going to take a hit, because there's less of a need to manufacture. It's a supply and demand. If there's a less of a demand of it, there's going to in turn be less of a supply as a result. And what will happen is marginal producers, people that aren't as efficient cost-wise, are going to be pushed out of the market. They're going to go out of business. Mom and pop stores are going to go out of business because they cannot compete in this market. So, anyway, that I think is going to be a big difference. You're going to see a slide further into the abyss. In my opinion, I'm not even positive if this presidential election is going to matter in the least. So, the difference between a Ted Cruz and Hillary Clinton presidency is basically what happens in the aftermath of the crash. Because I don't think that we're going to have a real shot at staving off disaster. We're here. We've missed that exit. The neon lights were flashing, and we decided to just keep pressing on, doing the same bad fiscal policies and kicking the can down the road. And by not actually addressing our problems, we have $18.5 trillion in debt. We're making it so difficult for Americans to create jobs here in America. By continuing these policies, we have, in fact, basically ensured that this system is going to come crashing down. So the question is, whoever's in the presidential seat, if there is a remnant of government left, if government is still around, do we want somebody that's going to continue to try to find an easy way to get through this temporarily and just until they get out of office? Or somebody who's going to essentially hand the reins over with the American government to some global government entity? And I believe that the Hillary Clintons and the Bernie Sanders would probably embrace a global citizens movement. I think they would embrace a global government movement. The bigger the government, the better, in their opinion. That just means they can help you more as far as they're concerned, which is, again, that's not the case. The government will only help you just so they don't have to face some kind of negative repercussion. So the bigger the government is, the less your individual voice works. I want to just give you a comparison here. I want you to imagine some kind of federal law that's being passed, or federal policy that's going through executive order or something along those lines, and you're trying to fight it as an individual. And now I want you to take another scenario and imagine at the local level, your county government, your city government. They're trying to do something similar to what happened in, by the way, Kelso, Washington. We talked about this before. There was essentially an eminent domain law that was going into effect. They were going to steal people's private property for the purpose of building parking lots, essentially. So we have a friend of mine. His name's Curtis. He went in and he fought this at the local level and got that language taken out of the bill. I mean, it's pretty amazing. He was able to stick it to I think it's a city council. He was, just because he showed up. One voice can affect the government. But if you can't affect anything at the federal level as an individual, how do you think you'll be able to affect anything at a global level? How do you think that's going to work out? Again, the government only cares about you so much as, again, they want you to continue to bring in revenue, and they don't want to do anything that's going to have some kind of reprisal against them. They don't want any kind of negative consequences as a result of that. In my opinion, with Ted Cruz, we're going to see somebody who's going to resist the global government, perhaps, who's going to tell you guys what the truth is, hopefully. I hope this is the case. I think more so than all the other candidates, with the exception of potentially Rand Paul. But I have issues with Rand because he seems like he's making deals with the establishment when he endorsed Mitch McConnell. I have my issues with Rand, but he at least seems to be intellectually honest. So Ted Cruz, on the other hand, he has a reputation for fighting against the establishment. He has a reputation for standing up for the individual. He has this reputation. And again, this isn't even just within the presidential election. He fought against President Bush, his own party, in the Supreme Court. This is before he was even a senator. So he was a lawyer arguing in front of the Supreme Court against his own party for individual rights. I can't remember the case. I'll have to look that up on a break. But and this really got the establishment angry at him to begin with. From the offset, he's been anti-establishment inside the Republican Party. And what exactly is the establishment? Maybe I should lay that groundwork. For those of you who don't know, essentially the establishment is the party power structure. So it's the people who have decided to put the power of the party, the influence of the party, their deal making, their ability to wheel and deal above what they actually stand for as a party, as far as the party principles. So what does the Republican supposedly believe in, like the Republican Party? What do they supposedly believe in? Supposedly it's the party of small government and, basically conservatism. Both, some would say it's both social and fiscal conservative. Is essentially the Republican Party, at least from what I have been able to surmise on my time on God's green earth. But essentially, what the establishment is that they don't care about those principles, the small government principles, those conservative principles. What they care about is their power, and they'll make any deals with anybody. And once for example, the party of big government, the Democrat Party, once they establish a program, for example, Obamacare, once they establish a program, it's the establishment types within the Republican Party. They don't care to make the government smaller again. They're not asserting their principles. What they're doing is trying to take over the control mechanism, the program. So, for example, they don't care about repealing Obamacare. They care about repealing and replacing Obamacare with their own system, with something that they can control. That's what they care about, because essentially they don't care how big the government is. They just care who's controlling the government, who has that power. That is what the establishment is. And this really only applies in terms, I mean, there's a democratic establishment, but it really only applies in terms of the Republicans. I guess it does factor in if you're talking about the cronyism of the Democrat Party in terms the principles itself are socialist. So if you're a crony Democrat, then you are in fact actually going against the socialist principles of colluding with these big corporations. But that's a byproduct of socialism. So I really don't think that is actually that there really is a Democrat establishment. Again, the byproduct of socialism is big government, which when you centralize power, it creates corruption. That is what you get. So that's the establishment on both sides. So my concern here is not who's gonna save us from the brink, who's gonna keep us from this big economic collapse that is currently happening. No one's going to be able to do that. We've already got past that point. The point is now who's going to collude with the bigger government interest? Who's going to collude with the global takeover? I hope that Ted Cruz wouldn't, but I know that Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders aren't going to have any issue with this. We have no meaningful opposition on that side of the aisle to that kind of movement. In fact, it would increase their power, it would increase their influence, probably increase their wealth, because they're going to use the climate exchange as essentially a global income tax for redistributive purposes. And they're saying that they're going to redistribute it to third world countries, low income countries and whatnot, and that will raise up the global GDP, the global wealth of production. From a business standpoint, that would make sense. However, it's not the way it's going to go. There's going to be a lot of money lost in transit, and it's going to be lining their pockets in the meantime. So that's where I stand on this. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. We're going to cut to a commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk about the Syrian refugees, or they're not really all from Syria, but the refugees that are coming in with the Syrians who are raping and pillaging in Europe. I want to talk about some of these stories I've heard, and some of the things that have been going on that I don't think has been really addressed well enough. Anyway, we'll be right back after this break. You guys don't want to miss this. We'll be right back.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, Mac Pack, we're back. So let's see here. We got a lot of stuff to get to, a lot on the agenda. Let's go ahead and start here with the refugees that are raping and pillaging in Europe. I have quite a few stories on this here. Let's start with the first two. In Berlin, this is from the epochtimes.de. This is in German, and I can't read it until I translate it. There we go. Translating. Wow, modern technology is amazing. So there was a 13-year-old migrant who was kidnapped and raped for 30 hours. A 13-year-old German-Russian was kidnapped in Berlin and held captive by 3 unknown men for 30 hours and repeatedly raped. So essentially what is happening is these refugees who believe in, again, I say this all the time, the literal interpretation of the Hadith and the Quran. Essentially, you believe that the people who do not believe in your religion are infidels, and therefore they are lesser human beings. In addition to women, by the way, just women in general are lesser than men in that ideology, and I'm referring to Sharia law. And if you are a woman or an infidel, you can be raped, you can be assaulted, you can be enslaved, and you can be murdered. Because you don't really matter. You're a lesser human being. And in fact, to kill an infidel in this religious ideology, this aspect of it, it's actually more humane. They actually think it's more humane for them to kill you as an infidel than to allow you to continue living with your infidel beliefs. So this is not a surprise. Again, the cultural relativist, and this is the word I was looking for earlier. The people who assume that you can't make any judgments. There are no absolutes. You can't judge anyone for their culture because you just don't know. You're not a part of that culture, so you have to be relative. Everything is relative. However, the statement that there are no absolutes is an absolute statement, and by the definition, it contradicts the fact that that everything's relative. If that's what you're saying, if you're saying that everything's relative, then there can be no absolutes. Therefore, your statement itself, which is an absolute, is not logical. It doesn't make any sense. Of course, first of all, of course there are absolutes, but this is happening in Berlin, and there's an effort here by the left in Berlin. They're basically saying that this kind of media coverage, these news stories are propaganda. They're saying this is right-wing propaganda, extremist right-wing propaganda. That this isn't really happening. This is all just bull. And look, it's all over the place. There's so many. It's not just one specific website that's doing this. There's a lot of stories, and there's big groups there's police, government officials that are commenting on in Cologne, Germany. I believe that's where it is. I think Cologne. There was a huge group of men that were wandering around and assaulting women, and this goes back to the relativism, because they're actually blaming women for the way that they're dressing. They're saying that, oh, well, first of all, everything's relative, and you need to be more sensitive to these people's culture, and it's your fault for dressing the way that you dress. You should be more mindful of how you're dressing, because these people, they may rape you. That may happen. If you're dressed like a prostitute, don't be surprised if you get raped. That's essentially what they're doing. This is blaming the victim. The people in Germany are extremely pissed. And honestly, I don't blame them. I don't think that Angela Merkel, is going to be forgiven for allowing so many refugees to enter the country. Again, there is a culture. There is such thing as cultures. And these arbitrary lines of borders that we discussed, a lot of times the cultures are contained within these arbitrary lines. Sometimes when they expand into these, again, I think these are globalized movements like the EU and things along those lines, the European Union, they essentially try to expand that culture. They say, hey, we're a part of the European Union and we're all kind of the same. This is the beginning steps. It all expands outward. But essentially, they want to embrace the same kind of cultures. So you're bringing an outside culture in the hundreds of thousands, and there is no assimilation process to your culture. They may, number one, not know what your culture is. Number two, not care. I'm guessing the not care is probably a big issue. That's probably what it is, considering the ideology of where they're coming from, the Sharia law, and the fact that many polls have already been shown that these people actually believe in Sharia law, and they believe that the Quran and the Hadith are the revealed word of God, and therefore if you do believe this, you believe in Sharia law, which believes it's okay to subjugate 50% of the population, women. They're lesser humans. They're essentially property. You can beat them up. You can rape them. You can sell them into slavery, kill them. None of that really matters because they're not real people. They're essentially property. And the same goes with infidels. I've talked about this already. But this is the ideology from that area, and it's part of their culture. And we're seeing a culture war happen right now. Merkel, I don't think the people will forgive her. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think it's even going to matter. Like I said, I think this whole thing is going to come crumbling down, and when it does, we're going to see big cities, highly populated areas eat themselves alive. I mean, we're talking civil unrest at a massive scale. And if you haven't accelerated your preps already, gang, I highly recommend you do. We're going to get into that a little bit later here in the second hour. But anyway, we got another story here, and this is going to blow your mind. This is from Yahoo News. .com, written by Pierre Henry Deschamps, I think is how you say that. January 19, 2016. The article is titled, "No Means No. Norway Sends Migrants to Anti-Rape Courses." So this implies that, again, they just don't know. It's a different culture. You know, they have different values, and they don't know that rape is wrong, even though, you know, you're getting, you know, cues, you're getting context cues from everyone around you. You know, the fact that every man around them isn't raping a woman who's showing, you know, her skin, that's showing more than her eyes. That would cue you to know that it's probably not socially acceptable for me to rape everyone here. You know, to rape all the infidels, probably not socially acceptable. But no, this is what they're actually trying to do. They're trying to teach these migrants that, you know, it's not an invitation to have sex if some girl shows her skin. If you can see her hair, it doesn't mean that you can just you know, rape her. That's not it. So in Norway, migrants are being given courses to prevent violence against women, especially rape, and to teach them how to interpret customs in a country that may seem surprisingly liberal to them. There are signs. Another article I read, there are signs that are being posted up at swimming pools saying that you're not allowed to touch, grope, rape women at a swimming pool. And the argument from the migrants is, look at what they're wearing. If they don't want to be touched or harassed, why are they wearing this? They're inviting me to rape them. Plus, they're infidels. I can do it. I can do whatever I want. They're not real people. So that's what's happening in Europe right now. And there are people in Europe in these migrant groups that are potentially ISIS. Even if just 1% of them are, that is a huge danger when it comes to terror attacks. And you also have to keep in mind that these other countries in the EU, all right, Europe, they're not free in the sense that you would think and compare to America. All right, you all have grown up, at least if you're a millennial. Maybe you haven't, but everyone prior to the millennial generation, and I'm a millennial, and I remember learning this, but I don't know what's being taught in our schools nowadays. And I'm at the tail end of the millennials, as Buck Sexton refers to it. I'm a graybeard millennial, but I don't really know a whole lot about my own millennial generation because I didn't go through school with these people. You know, I didn't, especially the tail end of this generation. I don't know what they're learning. I don't know how it was. But I remember growing up, and I'm sure you do, that we were the freest country on earth. I remember being told that you're lucky to be born in America because you're free. You're in the freest country on earth, and everyone else is less free or slaves compared to you. Essentially is what that implies. And you have to ask, again, what does it mean to be free? Why are we more free than everyone else? Because even at that time, I mean, there was essentially the same governments in power in European countries. So why are we more free than these people? Well, because we have a small government, and our government, well, at least we were supposed to have a small government, and our government has been restricted by the Bill of Rights. And essentially, the Constitution lays out the power granted to the government, and they're not supposed to do anything that is not granted to them. Now, the system is not working that way. We have seen the Supreme Court usurp the power of judicial review, where they have the ability to determine what is constitutional and what is not. And essentially, actually not essentially at all, that power was never granted to the Supreme Court. Judicial review, the power to determine what is constitutional and what is not, was never granted to the Supreme Court. They took it. And Marbury v. Madison, So if you don't know anything about that, look that up. Marbury v. Madison, very important Supreme Court case. It established judicial review, gave them the power, the ability to determine what is constitutional, what is not. That was the beginning. That was one large step, and that was in the 1800s, very early into the infancy of this republic, and that was a huge power grab. Now, personally, I don't have any problem whatsoever with the Supreme Court having the power of judicial review. However, because they were never granted it by the Constitution, our founders intended essentially for that power to be left to the Congress. So, because they were never granted that power, there were never any checks and balances that were created associated with them having that power. Every power in the government has a check and balance. At least that's how it was originally designed. So the other branches can stop that power from being used, or stop a branch of government from usurping too much power and centralizing too much power in too few hands. So my issue is that the ability of judicial review that Supreme Court has is that they are the final arbiter on what is constitutional and what is not. What they say is it. There's no way to overturn it. And I think that because the states, first of all, the states were designed to have power in government. They were supposed to have sovereignty. This country, the United States country, was really a bunch of small countries, states, that came together under a flag of friendship, a mutual protection pact, so to speak. So what happened? The 17th Amendment, it removed the state voice from the Congress, from the Senate. The senators were elected by state legislatures of all the states. So each state got together with their state legislator and voted on their senator or their senators. So that was what happened. But then the 17th Amendment came, and it made it so there's dual representation in the Senate for the public, the masses, the people. All right. So now the people vote in both the senator and the House of Representatives, that's where they were designed to do in the first place. But now the Congress is totally elected by the people, and it took state sovereignty away. So first of all, I think the 17th Amendment should be repealed. But more importantly, I think that the judicial review aspect of it should be able to be overturned by a supermajority of states. If a supermajority of states and their state legislators vote to repeal a Supreme Court decision, that would be an excellent check and balance, and I think that will give some more autonomy and sovereignty to the states, because the states have no way of saying, you know what, we're not going to follow this law, this federal law. We're going to refuse to follow this. And if they do, if they're actually doing civil unrest. Just look at civil disobedience. Look at what Washington, look at what Colorado is doing by allowing marijuana to be sold recreationally and used recreationally. That is essentially civil disobedience. Now, the federal government, they have the ability to, essentially, it's imposing sanctions, essentially, against the state. They can cut federal funding, which is why I have problems with the federal funding and all the stuff. That the federal government has grown so big, it shouldn't really be that big of a part of your life. It's really only designed for very, very limited things. The government should have essentially the ability to provide for the common defense by organizing the state militias. That's what it was supposed to be. They were allowed to have a military, but it can only be a standing army essentially for 2 years. It can only be funded for 2-year periods at a time. And they were allowed to have a navy so they could prevent countries from coming in and stuff like that. Essentially, the federal government was supposed to do that and to have foreign policy aspects of it. So, deal with foreign countries and things along that, conduct war, and also immigration to protect the country's protect the country from being what is the word I'm looking for here? Overran by immigrants. So, to come up with a naturalization process. So that's essentially, in a nutshell, what they were supposed to do. Oh, and also settle interstate disputes through the higher courts. That's it. That's really not. That's not that much in the grand scheme of things. The state governments were what's supposed to have a large impact, but now they've taken a backseat. Their voice is silenced. The federal government's grown larger and larger and larger. So back to this whole thing that's happening in Europe. We have, I know I went way off the rails here. Sorry about that. We are seeing a whole culture invading Europe and invading these places that have their own culture. And the relativist mindset is just saying, oh, they don't understand. Let's teach them that they shouldn't rape us and it's looked down on. Let's give them anti-rape courses, anti-assault courses, and all of that. But it's not going to matter. In my opinion, it's not going to matter. This is a culture war primed and ready to blow. And they've already I think they've let in too many already. And by the way, now there's talk from these countries about passing laws that will basically make it so the government can take the wealth, the resources, the assets that are being brought in with these refugees in order for these refugees to be allowed entry. So the government's basically taking the money and whatnot from these refugees in order to pay for them. And yeah, first of all, that's a joke. These people are coming from a third world country, and it's not like they're filthy rich. And on top of it, a lot of them are just coming with the clothes on their backs. A lot of them don't have much in the way of wealth. They're not coming in with big briefcases full of gold. And these refugees are coming in to get benefits from wealthy countries. They want to be a part of the welfare state. They want to make money from doing nothing. And they're complaining about the stuff that they are getting for free, mind you. The government isn't putting them to work in some kind of slave labor camp. All right, the governments over there are giving them tents. They're giving them, in some cases, cell phones. They're giving them food. They're, granted, the conditions aren't perfect. But what do you expect when you just show up on someone's doorstep and you demand refuge? I had a friend, Gary. Gary's last name, I won't say his last name. We'll keep it nameless. But Gary, he was a good guy, a good friend of mine. But he was one of those kind of guys that when he asked for a favor, it wasn't not a request. It was a demand. And if you ever said no to Gary, he would be pretty pissed. And it makes you regret not wanting to do something for somebody when they act that way. And, this is the sense of entitlement that not only these refugees have, but many people that are just on the welfare state in general. It doesn't matter where the country is. This is an entitlement. They are owed. They feel entitled to it. And if you do not do them the favor that they demand of you, there's going to be hell to pay. They're going to throw a fit. So I'm really concerned about what's to come because I feel like we're going to see a lot of people giving hell for the favors that the government has promised, and there's just no money to give. They're going to run out of other people's money to give because in order to give more money, they have to tax more or they have to print more money. And that is where we are now. That is the cycle that we have fallen into. We're going to cut to a commercial break. When we get back, I'm going to talk about the beginning of the cycle. We're going to start talking about specifics of the economic collapse and why I think it's time for you to accelerate your preps. As far as what you need to know, we're going to cover inflation, deflation. We're going to cover a lot of the different aspects of the economic collapse that's underway. We're going to talk about some of these specific articles that I find interesting. We're going to talk about the massive layoffs and store closures and how you need to get ready for civil unrest and what things you can look for as precursors, as signs that it's about to happen. So you guys don't want to miss this. This will be a very important second hour. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, gang, we're back. We're into the second hour of our program. I really do appreciate you all sticking with me. If you've made it this far, if you're not followed to us on Spreaker, please, you'd be doing me a huge favor if you would hit that follow button, sign up on Spreaker. I know there's a little bit of stuff that you have to do for that, but you're really helping us a great deal. Again, that is Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. It helps us analytically speaking because we'll show up in search results more, which means more people will listen, which actually means that you're helping your fellow man prepare for what's to come by receiving this information. So, let's see here. We got a lot of things on the agenda here. So, first, I've been saying that it's time to accelerate your preps. I've been saying this for a while, but I'm telling you, if you haven't done so already, you really need to invest your time in learning new skills. That's a part of your prep. I think that's going to be one of the most important things that you can do right now. Get some kind of mechanical ability. That's going to be in high demand. Maybe fabricating a way of manufacturing. Have some kind of skill that you can use, no matter what it is. Don't just be a skilled or an unskilled laborer, because there's so many of them, and this administration is hell-bent on importing more of them. So you need to be in demand. You need to have some kind of skill that's in demand that will make you competitive. But more importantly, there's some aspects that I want to talk about just for a moment here. Gold and silver. Now, I'm not pitching you on a company to buy because I'm making money from it or anything. But I will tell you where I have purchased gold and silver in the past, and the place I use, and I can tell you that it's legit because I got stuff from it. So I can't speak on any of the other places. And FYI, I'm not getting paid by these guys. Okay, APMEX.com. I have purchased from them in the past, and they have a lot of good things. I would recommend the bullion, silver or gold bullion, if you're looking to invest in silver or gold. Now, first of all, what we're talking about, the economy, you may already be thinking, hey, Mac, I don't have any money. I can't afford to invest in this. And if that's the case, well, I'm not talking to you. I'm sorry. I'm not talking to you specifically then. If you have money that you've pulled out of the bank, you've taken my advice, you pulled the money out of the bank because you're going to want to, that not only are they going to put limits on how much money you can withdraw at a time, but in addition to that, they're going to do bail-ins. They're doing it around the world right now. They're bailing in, and they're stealing depositors' money. They're literally stealing the money in a bail-in. Instead of a bailout where the federal government takes your money, they steal your taxpayer money, and they give it to these banks. Now they're taking the money because they know, or at least they think, that the federal government or global governments aren't going to, or governments globally aren't going to bail them out. So they're stealing depositor cash, and they're bailing themselves out with your money. So if you took my advice and you pulled your money out of the bank, good. Keep money on hand. It doesn't hurt anything right now. We're not to the point of inflation where your money is worthless and it's like $1 million for a loaf of bread or something like that. We're not at that point yet. We may be at that point soon. But when that point hits, that's inflation. That's when your money becomes worthless. It starts to become worth less and less and less. And the reason why is because the government digitizes money. In this case, in the past, it was printing money. They've added more dollars to the circulation. So, again, if you have one pizza and it's not cut in any slices, that pizza is worth one. If you cut it in half, now one slice of pizza is worth 1 out of 2. So it's worth 50% less. The more you keep slicing that pizza, is essentially so. When you're talking about currency is essentially like a pizza. You can't make more of the whole. The more you make, the less each individual piece is worth. Unlike jobs, the government thinks that there's only so many jobs that can be created, and at least that's what the socialists, the leftist statists believe. There's only so much of the pie to go around as far as wealth. That's just not the case. You can make more pie. But in terms of currency, you can't. The more of the currency that's out there available, the less each piece of currency is worth. So if you took my advice, you pulled the money out of the bank, if you don't have a crap ton of money, if you don't have thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, I don't think that you need tens of thousands of dollars in cash right now. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would feel uncomfortable having tens of thousands of dollars of cash like stuffed under my mattress or something. I would have issues with that. I wouldn't feel comfortable with it. I would be looking at buying assets and things that are going to be worthwhile. One of the things I would recommend, if you're talking about a lot of money, I don't think you can go wrong, no matter what, buying some kind of off-the-grid energy supply. You can go get solar panels. You can get solar generators. They have them. I'm sure you can just do a quick Google search to find one that you want. But one way to get solar panels that you might not be aware of is a really cheap and easier way than buying them outright, is to go to like an RV place, and they have solar panels that are used in some cases, or some of them are brand new, but they're cheaper. And you can do it that way. And you need a battery bank. You need things that you can create energy, and that will be a help. Also, think about we're in the middle of a really cold winter right now, and a lot of you, I think I was reading that there's like 8.4 million Americans that were affected by this blizzard that crossed the country, myself included. If there's no power, if the power goes out, how are you going to produce heat? Because that may be an issue for you. For example, I live in an apartment, so I don't have like a wood-burning stove. This is an issue that I've been thinking about myself. I wish I could take my own advice, but you really should consider a way to produce heat without electricity. Think about it, because in addition to having a wood-burning stove for heating up your home, you can also use it for cooking and things along those lines. So, very important. But back to gold. If you have a lot of cash, all right, and I'm not telling you to dump all of your money into this, but if you want to put a hedge against financial collapse, if you want to hedge your bets, you can put a fraction of your money. Some people say 1%, some people say 10%. I don't know what you should do as far as how much. I'm not a financial expert, but what I know is that gold has historically always been worth something, and so is silver. It's always been worth something, and it's considered a safe haven asset. And what that means is that, even if the price drops for gold and silver, even if that price is lower and it's you've lost money on it or something, it's pretty consistent with the amount of goods that you can get. So if you had like basically, no matter what the price is, you'll pretty much be able to buy the same thing, the same item with that same amount of gold, because gold goes up and down with the economy. So no matter if we're in a deflationary period and everything is worth hardly anything, everything is cheap, or if everything's in an inflationary period where everything costs a fortune, gold will still allow you to buy the same asset, because it should, unless the government's artificially changing the markup for it. If there's some kind of artificial stimulation of the stock market or other things, gold will be a safe haven asset for you. So gold, silver, and in fact, I was reading an article, I don't remember the percentage now, but I was reading an article a while back ago. They said that silver is actually one of the best things that you could have if we went back to the gold standard, because there has been a lot of disturbances according to the article, and I don't know how accurate this is because I don't remember who said it and all that, but there was a historical correlation between the price of silver and the price of gold. Silver was essentially a certain percentage of gold, and since we went off the gold standard, that percentage has gone way off the rails. And if we ever did go back to the gold standard, no matter what the currency is, whatever the global currency is, if we ever go back to the gold standard, and which I think we would if the global Ponzi scheme works, and whatever the next thing is set up, I think it will be on the gold standard initially to have it backed, and so people will trust it, so people will think that it's reliable. It has to be backed by gold initially. And then, 70 years into it or so, they'll have the same Ponzi scheme set up that they do now. So they'll have taken it off the gold standard and all of that. But regardless, if we go back to the gold standard, according to the article I remember reading, they were saying that the price of silver will necessarily go back to this historical percentage of gold. And therefore, even if the price of gold doesn't rise, even if it stayed exactly the same, the price of silver will skyrocket because it will go back to this percentage. But in this situation, the price of gold is going to skyrocket with an economic collapse. There's no doubt to it. I wouldn't be surprised to see gold somewhere right now. The last I checked, in fact, let me. I gotta. Let's see here. Oh shoot! I dropped my phone. I have an app on my phone that tells me the price of gold and silver. Let me see here. I have. 1 second here, gang. I'm trying to. We got a call here, but I'm gonna put you on mute here 1 second, and I'll take you in one moment. Okay, so the price of gold right now is $1,099. That's the ask price, and the price of silver is $14 an ounce. I mean, this is crazy. $14 an ounce. I remember when it was over $40. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if gold went up to $5,000, $10,000 an ounce if we're in an inflationary period. So, just keep in mind and again, I don't remember what that historical percentage of silver was, or even if that's a true thing. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm way off base. I'll have to do some more checking on that. But the point is, things are going to go up. The price of these assets are going to go up, and you're pretty much going to be able to buy the same physical asset, whatever it is. If you have enough gold to buy a car now, if inflation happens, that gold will still buy you that car. If deflation happens, that gold will still buy you that car, because it's pretty much a safe haven asset. And though I may be wrong, and we may be entering into some other territory that I can't predict. All I can do is look at the tea leaves like everyone else and just see things and guess, make some correlations and guess. This kind of stuff has never happened before. Gold has always been worth something. So put some money into that. But here's the thing about gold and silver. You can't eat it. All right? You can't eat gold and silver. You just can't do it. And sometimes it's going to be difficult for you, especially if we crash to a barter system. It's going to be difficult for you to convince somebody to take an ounce of gold for anything if they need food. If you're trying to buy food with an ounce of gold, somebody may say, no, I can't eat gold. I need to eat. So what I would recommend, if you have money right now, if you are able to, buy food and water. Buy it now. A way to filter water. There's a lot of different devices out there that you can filter water. Look online. You can find a ton of them. I'm not trying to sell you anything right now, gang. I'm not making any money from anybody. This is not a profit thing for me. I'm literally just warning you because you need to accelerate your preps now while you can. If you wait until this stuff actually happens, the economy, the dollar is seen as weak and that collapses and all of that, that's when the poos hit the fan. We're in the collapse now. The depression has begun. There's no doubt about that. It's begun. And if you wait until everyone else knows that, because again, all the warning signs are there. People are just ignoring it. People are just ignoring it right now, acting like nothing is going on. And if you wait until everyone realizes, oh crap, poos hit fan, it's too late. Everybody's going to make a run on the grocery store. The price of the goods, because the demand shot way up, it's going to be too much. Now you can afford to do it. Buy food now. Buy food. Dry food. Buy canned food. Whatever you can get your hands on, invest into it now, because that will be one of the best trade items you can get. Everyone has to eat, and that will be in demand. I have recommended, and I'm recommending now, that you get a 5-gallon bucket, food-grade bucket, get a Mylar bag. And again, even if you don't get a food-grade bucket, as long as the lid seals good, you're all right. because essentially it's in a Mylar bag. Get it in a Mylar bag, throw in some air oxidizers in there to oxygen absorbers, all those, and that'll suck the air out of it after you seal the bag shut and get all that air out of it. You suck it out with a straw and then finish sealing the bag up. And you can put 25 pounds of food in a 5-gallon bucket. It lasts somewhere between 25 and 30 days of food, essentially, for one person. Invest in that. That's going to be a huge, huge barter item. I know this sounds like Chicken Little, but you're going to be thanking me later. I promise you that. So anyway, at this point, we have a caller on the line. Hey, caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
It's Tony.
Hey, Tony. All right. Yeah. Okay. So Tony Clark, everyone. He is the guy I turn to for economic analysis. I think Tony's got a great head on his shoulder. Former host of Signing Off with Tank and Tony. Tony, first of all, what are you up to now? Do you got any other show going on? You got anything you want to promote?
Oh no, I'm just I moved to Arizona, and I am doing a lot of recycling, repurposing, upcycling, and I'm pretty heavy involved in the Second Amendment around here.
Outstanding. Arizona's a great state. You guys got constitutional carry out there.
Oh yeah, dude. How about this? Walking through Walmart, 44 hanging on the side, 45 hanging on the side. You cannot go anywhere around here without seeing a person carry. And let me tell you, the crime around here, it doesn't exist. Occasional burglary with the meth heads, and that's about it.
There you go. Are you pretty close to a major population zone?
No, I'm between Flagstaff and Phoenix. So Flagstaff is north of me, Phoenix obviously south of me.
Okay, well that's a pretty good location. And how many minutes out from a population center are you?
I'm about an hour and a half, 2 hours from.
Oh man, you got a good spot, and this is what I'm recommending to everyone. I know you have a life. I get that you guys have lives out there, and you can't just uproot your family and move them away from a city if you can't afford it, if you have a job in the city. But I'll tell you, if you have the ability, if you've been holding off on getting out of the city, don't. Get out now while you can, because the cities are going to be on fire. So, but before we start talking about all that, I want to talk to Tony here. Tony, tell me, first of all, just what's your general take on the economy right now? What do you think? Do we have a good economy?
Absolutely not.
All right. So why? What's going on?
The hyperinflation and the overvaluing of the companies in 44 markets and the commodities have finally started to catch up. Now, I'll explain what I mean by that, because I want to be perfectly clear when I say this. And before I get into this, last time I was on your show, you and I had a conversation, and I said, Mac, it wouldn't surprise me within the next couple of weeks if we see the Dow drop 1,000 points.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and what was it? It was the following Monday, the market dropped 1,089 points.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I told you where I got my basis from. I'm a numbers guy, and I don't necessarily watch TV to hear somebody's opinion. I watch them to pick up patterns in numbers, and I know quite a few people that invest heavily in hedge funds, T-bills, mutual funds, municipal bonds, etc. And I think we got lucky on that. And I remember telling you, I don't know how it is that somebody like me, and I'm not stupid by any stretch of the imagination, how somebody like me looks at this and can say this is going to happen because this is what's going on right now, and the powers that be don't see it. Here's what's going on. You and I know what's going on. The overvaluing of the global elitist economy is starting to come to a halt. You see that in China, right? Now, the media will have us believe that the Chinese economy is not tied to ours. Well, we know that's horse crap, because we can see that since China's economy has gone down so has the American economy, the UK's economy, the Brazilian, Venezuelan, the German economy. The only economy that is not on a free fall, that's my word, right now is Spain.
You know, and I've been saying that as well. This is all completely linked in. But also Iceland, as far as I understand, Iceland is doing pretty well as well. Have you been following that?
Well, yeah, I have. And Iceland, we have to look outside the box as it pertains to Iceland, because Iceland got rid of the central banking cartel.
Mm-hmm.
They kicked them out. They said, no, we can hang. We can do our thing. And I think if Greece would have done the same thing, they would not have had the free fall that they had. And quite frankly, I think the cartel is, if they're not 100% responsible, they're part and parcel. I think the responsibility lies on the shoulders of greed. Okay,
you know, I can't argue with that either. I mean, this is, in my opinion, this is a result. It's not just the banks that are evil and greedy. It's a result of politicians colluding with the banks, government colluding with banks. That collusion, I think, is just as threatening, if not more threatening, to individual rights and freedom around the world as the like a state religion, as the collusion of religion and government. I think that our founders messed up when they didn't make a constitutional amendment that prohibited the collusion between government and the banks.
Well, and they also, you're spot on. You've got the concept. You understand it. Here's the other thing that our forefathers couldn't have the foresight to see, that politicians were going to get a deluge of lobbyists going, hey, we need this to pass. We need this to pass. There's statistics out there that show that for every member of Congress, there are approximately 1,700 lobbyists.
So
if you have 1,700 people in your backyard going, hey, we have a forum in Maui. We'd like to send you and your family, and we would like you to be the keynote speaker. Under the guise of it's not a payola, they do it. But if it's a payola, they get a free vacation.
So Tony, as far as I'm concerned, I have no problem with the fact that there are lobbyists, because, and I'll tell you why here. This is going to sound weird to some people, because first of all, lobbying your government is a form of free speech, and in order to restrict that, you would be restricting free speech, and I'm not a fan of doing that. But in my opinion, lobbying is a symptom of a root cause, and the root cause is the fact that the government itself even has the power. They have not been prevented and expressly blocked from giving special favors to companies. They're getting lobbied because they have the power. If they never had the power, there would be nobody lobbying them. So you're cutting that out of the equation.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with lobbyists either. My problem isn't with lobbyists. My problem is under the guise of payola at the end of the rainbow is what the lobbyist is for. See, let's say you and I go to D.C., and we're staunch Second Amendment supporters, but we don't have anything to offer, and I'm just pulling somebody out of the air here. We go to Ted Cruz, and we say, hey, Ted Cruz, we need you to do this for blah, blah, blah. Ted Cruz isn't going to come out and say, what are you going to do for me? Is he?
Not outright.
Now, if Remington Arms, I'm just pulling that out of the air, if Remington Arms goes to Ted Cruz and says, this is what we need you to do because we have to stay in business, because we are putting people to work, and we're staunch supporters of the Second Amendment, what is the likelihood that Ted Cruz is going to respond to Remington Arms versus responding to us?
So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, you're absolutely right. He's obviously going to follow the money. But my point is that, first of all, people have a right to use their money towards campaigns of their choice. I mean, if I want to spend my money to promote a political viewpoint, an agenda, I have every right to do that, just like you do. So even if we're on opposing sides of the coin, I support your right to spend your money. The money isn't the problem, though. It's the fact that if a third party has the ability to use power to actually do something that somebody wants, to give a special favor to a bank or a company, or to do something along those lines, that money is going to be there because the power's there. It's either going to be overt or covert. People are going to find a way to grease some palms to get things done because that's the way the world works. Whether or not we allow lobbyists or not, that's the way the world works. People are going to pay people off in bribes. Happens all over the world. It's happened all throughout history. You can't change it. That's a realist point of view, to just acknowledge that people will bribe people and people will accept bribes. That's the way the world works. And we can't go around pretending that that's not how the world works. The point is to make it so no one is incentivized to bribe someone by removing the power that gives them the authority to make whatever changes or provide those special favors. Again, I know I sound like a broken record, but that's the issue. It doesn't. You have a right to spend your money. That's your property. That's by using your property in that way, you're in fact actually using a freedom of expression, expressing your viewpoint, your political ideology, or whatever it may be. I don't think that there should be any kind of regulation preventing that, and it's impossible to really determine, all right, well, a campaign donation, is that really a bribe, or is it just you're trying to get your guy in office because he agrees with your point of view? How do you differentiate that? I don't know. So the point is you make it so that they don't have the power to give you favors.
Yep, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
So let's go back to the economy here. Tell me what is causing these Dow drops, these huge 100-point, and the other day it was down almost, I think, 500 points or so. What's happening? I know a lot of talk about oil, so bring us up to speed.
Okay, so it is part and parcel. There are a couple of valuable equations that factor into this. Number one is indeed the drop in oil. We see oil touch down to $26 a barrel. Now, it has, since the past 48 hours, it has gone back up. It's at like $32 a barrel. So it's gone up roughly 28% in the past 48 hours. Here's the problem with this. The Saudis have said, we're not stopping production. We don't care. It costs them approximately, in American dollars, $40 a barrel to pick it out of the ground. And the barrel itself is around $90. So it's not making sense. How long can you keep producing something and losing money at it? Which tells us how much money the Saudis have to waste and where they are in the world playing with us. The Chinese market playing a big deal. The Chinese market in the past year, not even year, it's about 8.5 months, has lost approximately 50% of its value. Now, we lost 50% of our value. I don't know if you remember, it wasn't too long ago. Mm-hmm. It started in 2008, and it was right around the middle of March of 2009, the stock market dropped down, and this is after Obama took office. It dropped down to 6,400 points. It lost 60% of its value. And look how it crippled the United States. Now, we don't look at it as crippling so much when we look back on it, but for those of us who had money in the market at the time, who had 401ks, who had IRAs, all of those took major hits. Just imagine having, let's say you realistically, let's say you had $100,000 saved, then $100,000 is looking like $50,000, mm-hmm. and you're on the brink of retirement.
I got a good friend. He's his father in the last market crash. He lost $250,000 out of his retirement account. It just vanished, disappeared. I'm hearing now. I saw some reports last week, and it's probably worse now. That about $2.5 trillion of wealth has vanished in the stock market because of these huge losses that we've been experiencing.
Well, I'm gonna enlighten you on what a point in the Dow, and this is by last Friday's number, 1 point loss in the Dow Jones. We're just going to use the Dow Jones, not the NASDAQ or S&P or FTSE or anything. 1 point is approximately $986 million.
Where'd you get that from?
That's my formula. So, and I'll tell you how I got to it.
Okay.
I took all the 30 companies in Dow Jones, all of their outstanding stock, and the value of their stock at today. So obviously this is an arbitrary number because it can go down and up as the market goes up and down. So that's why I took it one day, and that's been my number, and I've been fairly accurate for about almost 4 years now. It's right around 900. The lowest it's been is 970 million, and the highest it's been is 1.1 billion. So 900 is about $986 million a point drop in the Dow.
Okay.
So we see when we had that 536 point swing last week, it dropped 536 points at one time. That was a loss of money. That money did not get gained back. What happened is more stock was purchased, and it may have been in the form of stocks, it may have been in the form of options, or it may have been in forms of bonds. It wasn't necessarily, they lost that money and they made that money back. That's not what happens. And that's the misconception people have. Once that money's lost, it's lost. And so we look at this year already, the stock market is down, like 9.2, 9.3%. It bounced back a little Friday. There was a little buyback. People are happy, feel good. Hey, let me buy some Apple stock because it's $90, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But the money was still lost. If we had $100,000 the middle of December in our IRA, we now have $89,000. See, we didn't just automatically make that money back.
Yeah.
Because the stock market went back up a little bit. We took the hit.
Wow. That's crazy.
Here's the biggest factor that I don't see anybody on TV talking about this. And you know me, Mac, I'm an info kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't listen to the news. I watch the numbers scrolling on the bottom of the screen. I watch the people selling Apple, GM, Walmart. Here's what nobody is talking about. No politician running for office. Nobody on CNBC, Fox Business, RT, nobody. Commodities.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you, you know what commodities are, but I'm going to let your fan base hear. Commodities are energy, metals, agriculture, meat and livestock, and consumer goods. Now, each of those have subs, like consumers, and I'm not going to go through all of them. Consumer goods are metric tons of sugar, cotton, coffee, cocoa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meat is hog bellies, pork bellies, stuff like that. Stuff that, we kind of laugh about, but it's real.
Mm-hmm.
Agriculture, metals, obviously, self-explanatory, copper, silver, gold, platinum, palladium, rhodium, and energy. Energy is unleaded gasoline, crude oil. There's only 4 items in there. So when oil drops, it takes it down. Now, in the past year, commodities have dropped 28%. Now, imagine if the Dow Jones had dropped 28% in the last year. Now we're going to take our $100,000 that we had invested, and in the past year, we're now down to $72,000. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Commodities in the last month alone the last month of trading alone have dropped 16%. The last time commodities dropped like this was in 2008, right before the housing bubble. And we know what happened right after the housing bubble. Stuff hit the fan, and we had the collapse in March of 2009. This time, it's posed to be worse. Again, this is my opinion. I think given the way the numbers and the patterns have worked themselves out now, I think it could be worse. Now, I've talked to several economists. I have a friend of mine that's a numbers guy at the University of Southern California. He and a couple of his mentors, we'll call them mentors, this guy's 68 years old, are telling me that there's a distinct possibility that by the end of 2016, the Dow Jones Industrial Average could drop down as low as 6,000 points.
Wow.
Now, we're at, what, just a little over 16,000 right now?
I'd have to Google that. Give me 1 second. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we're at a little over 16,000 right now.
Okay.
After its little spring back on Friday at 212 points, it closed at a little over 16 grand.
Okay.
So now I'm going to tell you a couple other guys I talked to say, as quickly as the market goes down, because of the political unrest right now and the politics that are playing into this, it could just as easily hit 20,000. That, my friend, is what is so scary, because you have professionals that just study numbers. Now, the colonel, the guy I know, they call him the colonel, he's been involved in this stuff for 50 years. He's seen it. He's done it. I've talked to him. I've known him for a long time, and he's been very accurate. That nobody can get on the same page as it pertains to any of the markets, any of the commodities, that they all are basically just throwing their hands in the air going, your guess is as good as mine? How would you like to go into your financial advisor and say, yeah, I got $100,000 right now, and I'd like to put it in something. What do you think is the best thing I should do? And this guy looking at you go, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
What does that say? You might as well shove it underneath your mattress.
Exactly.
Oh, and by the way, don't do this American cash.
Don't do what?
Put in this. Don't do it as American cash, right?
Oh,
go and buy a few silver bars, a few pieces of gold, some platinum, some water purification, some ammo.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So I want to actually ask you a question here, because I'm hearing this. I heard this on Shepard Smith reporting on Fox. Okay, and this blew my mind. I could not believe they had an economist on there, and he was trying to spin this thing as, first of all, he was a talking head saying, oh, everything's fine. I couldn't believe he said this first part. He said, and this is how I knew not to trust him. He said, even though we've had all these significant drops in the stock market, our fundamentals of the economy are good. He said, job creation is good, job security is good, layoffs are scarce, and his reasoning, his rationale for why there is a lessened demand for oil, which is causing first of all, he blamed the oil prices for lessened demand. That's a factor, in my opinion, but not the only factor. But he blamed the lessened demand for the fact that we may be moving away from a carbon-based economy, and this is a result of alternative energy. Now, Tony, forget about all the other stuff as far as the fundamental sides, because I know you have probably a whole slew of things you could say. I'm going to save that for me after I have you off the phone here. But tell me what you think about us moving away from an oil-based, a carbon-based society. Do you think that our economy is actually the demand is being lessened for oil because we have all this alternative energy, or are there some other factors at play? Why is the price of oil dropping?
I think it's just the demand. I think the price of oil is dropping because I think people are worried about what Iran's going to do with all of the oil they have sitting in tankers. They're trying to get money out of it, and they don't have to get that much money out of it. I think there's a little bit of panic. I think there's a little bit of knee-jerk. But I'm going to answer your question. I don't think it has anything to do with us getting away from fossil fuels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't think that. Yeah, I'm not buying that one bit. Tesla's got a few vehicles out there, and Elon Musk, he's coming out, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. Let me tell you something. If a blah blah did not have his green incentive, Elon Musk wouldn't be. He'd be sitting in his garage doing the same thing I do. Ooh, let me experiment with that. That's all he'd be doing.
Yeah.
He got all the taxpayer money, formed this company, and look, I digress. I don't even want to talk about that idiot anymore.
Yeah, it's a good topic. I mean, as far as that's the government picking the winners and losers, essentially, is what that is they're taking money from everybody else. They're taking taxpayer cash that could be used in other sectors of the economy, which is the real way that the free market determines winners and losers, is by consumer demand, supply and demand, things along those lines. They're taking that money, and by taking it, they're making it so that you can't spend it in other areas, and they're pumping it into ideas that they think are good. And we've already seen with Solyndra, that company went tits up, and it's just a big waste of taxpayer money. But again, who do you think is the best people to determine what a good product is? Is it the government, or is it the people that are going to buy the product? I would argue that it's the people that buy the product, but I digress.
Of course it is.
So,
that's business 101, Mac. I mean, if you're marketing a product, you take it out on the street. Look at how, and I'll give you a great example of two companies that have a very successful product: Monster and Red Bull.
Mm-hmm.
They took the stuff out on the street and they gave it away to people, and now look at them. They're huge beverages in the world.
Yeah. Everybody. I mean, those are name brands that everyone knows about. And in fact, by the way, the 5 Hour Energy drink company, they're doing awesome as well. And there was a documentary. I can't remember what it's called now. Oh shucks, I forgot. But this documentary was talking about the owner of 5 Hour Energy. He's been developing technology into energy, water, and let's see, what was medical healthcare. And I mean, he's been coming up with some amazing breakthroughs from his company. Like, they have a limitless energy machine. I've talked about it before. It's basically where they drill a hole into the Earth's. This is an idea. They haven't actually gotten this done yet, but they want to drill a hole into the Earth's core where the magma is, and they take this. It's a graphene byproduct, or graphite byproduct, where they refine it down to this metal called graphene. And basically, graphene is a superconductor. If you heat up one end, the other end will heat up to that same exact temperature instantly. Doesn't matter if it's an inch piece of graphene or a 10,000-mile piece of graphene. It's super conductive. So basically, they're going to put this graphene down into the ground, into the magma, or the core where it's really hot, and bring up that heat, and they'll put that in water to produce steam, to produce power from the steam spinning turbines. And this is free. It's energy that is it's limitless. It truly is. And it just is amazing at what entrepreneurs can do on their own without government help, and you're going to see this stuff taking place. And this is all not emitting carbon, by the way. To produce this stuff, it's carbon free, and the government would have you believe that climate change and carbon, which I would argue carbon isn't a pollutant, but first of all, they would have you believe that this is destroying the earth, and their answer is to restrict and stifle development. Whereas if you just let people do what they're going to do, we'll find a way to get off of fossil fuels in the first place, and this won't even be an issue, which it isn't anyway. But I digress. So let's go back to the oil thing, because I think this is important. I think that oil, first of all, is obviously Saudi is driving down the price of oil, and I've been saying this for the longest time. They're trying to put shale out of business, American shale out of business. They want to destroy the natural gas industry in America. They've successfully taken out the marginal producers, the people that aren't able to produce efficiently and effectively, cost effectively, natural gas. But the ones that are, due to modern technology and American innovation, we've been able to figure out how to stay in business. They have skeleton crews at these American shale companies here, and they're essentially running bare minimum crews, and they've figured out how to lower the cost of production. So they're still in business. But I think Saudi wasn't expecting the American demand for oil because we're the largest consumer of oil in the world. I don't think they were expecting the demand to be so low, and I think they've got caught by surprise here because our economy is far worse off than our government is alluding to, and the government numbers would have you believe. So I want to ask you specifically now, why do you think that the demand, I know you said you think people are concerned, but what is causing the concern about why people aren't spending their money? What is going on in the economy? Why people are hanging on to their income if they have any additional income?
Well, I think I was listening to your show a little earlier, and I think you've got it. I think that people are starting to realize that there's trouble on the horizon. So instead of our gas bill, and I'll give you an example. Our gas bill, weekly gas, was running right around $80. Now it's down to about 55. I'm not in a hurry to spend that extra 25, $30. I'm not in a hurry to have pizza twice a week instead of once a week. I'm okay now, and I've talked to, I know tons of people, and I talk to a lot of people, and everybody is okay with having a little bit of cash now, having a little bit of ammo, having some water. We've seen enough natural disasters, and this little blizzard you guys had on the East Coast over there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what happened with us. We all of a sudden, within a matter of 36 hours, had close to 30 inches of snow out of nowhere.
Wow. In Arizona?
Right? Yeah, I'm in the mountains.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, I thought that was a desert place. Okay.
Well, no, once you go down the mountains, yeah, I mean, the temperature change obviously is, 40 degrees. Mm-hmm. But, all of a sudden, and, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, I got gas in the generator. I got the big generator. Oh, I have 3 generators. How much gas do I? Oh, I'm doing good. I look underneath. Well, I got plenty of water. I walk in the pantry and shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, let it snow.
Yeah. So it's Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was going to say, 25 years ago, I wouldn't have been like that. Mm-hmm. 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been like that. And I was still active in the stock market. Mm-hmm. More active, actually. I think people are starting to wake up and read the handwriting on the wall in a lot of things. And I'm going to go off to the left. I don't usually do this a lot, but there's a reason that Bloomberg is talking about putting his hat in the ring. Because they know if Bloomberg puts his hat in the ring, he's taking away from the Democratic vote. So knowing this, he's a multi-billionaire just like Trump. Knowing this, why would the man even hint that he was going to put his hat in the ring? And I'll tell you why. Why I think. I think that Hillary is finally going down in flames. I think this last batch of email information was the proverbial nail in her coffin. She's been Teflon for 25 years now. I think her chickens are coming home to roost. I think that's why he's put it in there. Now, and I think there's enough people who are now saying, okay, we're tired of this BS. Her spewing that is all political rhetoric, we're not buying it anymore. And I hear people saying stuff like, man, what is going on in the government? What is going on with these politics? What's going on here? Whatever happened to what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. I mean, there is no gray matter. The law is black and white.
Yeah, I completely agree. As far it blows me away that we're actually having conversations. I've had conversations with a couple people that they absolutely don't think that even if she is guilty of what I've been accusing her of doing, which I think is obvious based on the evidence, that she has been sending classified and receiving classified material on a private email server for the purpose of covering up her activities in the Clinton Foundation, which is essentially a slush fund that they get to dump their income into and say, look how generous and charitable we are. Let's write off that income. And then they take that money and it funds their lavish lifestyles and all of that. And also they can receive bribes from foreign governments and people for special favors to the Clinton Foundation, like Donald Trump, by the way. He even admitted that, if you pay a politician, they'll do whatever the hell you want, and he's used that to his advantage. But regarding Clinton, I think she may actually lose this primary, and it may actually end up with Bernie Sanders. And honestly, I hope so. I hope it's a choice between Bernie Sanders and Ted Cruz. And I think that as an independent, a Michael Bloomberg running as an independent, I don't think that's going to hurt the Republicans. I think that is a good thing for Ted Cruz if he's running. Bloomberg, his idea is that he can basically slide in the middle there, because if Bernie Sanders actually does take over, and polls are indicating that it's within the margin of error in some places like Iowa, where Bernie might actually have a chance, and this is blowing my mind. I never thought I didn't think we were that bad off as a country to where we have so many people that are socialists or would vote for a socialist out there. And I'm wrong. It's happened quicker than I could have ever dreamed. But apparently, if Bernie does win, it will be the ideological left all the way on their extreme, and the ideological right all the way on their extreme. And Michael Bloomberg is hoping that maybe he can peel off enough from everybody on both sides and run as essentially an independent and a moderate candidate. But I don't think that's going to work, because Republicans know Bloomberg. Republicans know that he's anti-gun, and that alone is enough to prevent any Republican from voting for him. So I don't think he's going to work, and I would love to see America choose between a socialist or a so-called constitutionalist with Ted Cruz. I hope that's the truth. I hope that's what he is. He uphold and defend the Constitution. I hope so. But I think if that is a choice and Bloomberg decides to throw his hat in the ring, Ted Cruz will win, in my opinion, because I don't think anybody's going to vote on the Republican side for Bloomberg, and all he's going to do is pull votes away from Bernie Sanders. And he's prepared. This is Bloomberg's camp saying this. He's prepared to spend $1 billion on this presidential run in an already historical presidency race. This is already historically higher than any other race in history. So I mean, it's crazy. It's going to be nuts. And imagine if Trump is on the other side, how much money is going to be spent. It's going to be huge. Actually, as Trump says, huge. It'll be enormous. It'll be great. So, but yeah, so as far as the price of oil dropping, I agree. I think it's the demand. I think obviously Saudi has caused some of this, but it's the demand. Where I would disagree or maybe add to what you're saying, I agree with what you're saying as far as reasons for demand. People are concerned, but also I think when looking at the stock market, people have to understand this is the last sign of the economy, of the economic collapse, is the stock market. This is what they've worked to prop up, and they've created historical highs in the stock market. And this just can't continue when people are looking at their everyday life and you're seeing historical lows. You're making less money. You have less money than you've ever had in your bank account. Your financial situation is worse off than it's ever been. The stock market can't continue to be at historical highs when everyone else in the country is at historical lows. And this leads us to the point of the lower demand. You know, if you used to have a full-time job and you were laid off because of Obamacare, and now you have to pay for your health care, and you have to have 2 part-time jobs in order to make close to what you were making as a full-time job, you're hurting. And maybe you're part of these massive layoffs that we're going to get into a little later. I want to talk about the fundamentals of the economy. Maybe you only have the 1 part-time job now, and you're actually hurting. You have less places to go. You have nowhere to go. Maybe you don't even have a job. You're on unemployment. You're part of the massive amount of people that are not working. We have the largest amount of people now, a record 94.6 million Americans who are not participating in the labor force. So go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, here's the fallacies that are put forth by the mainstream media. The fallacies they're not telling us that this administration does not use the same formula to determine the amount of unemployment in the United States that previous presidents and previous administrations have used. So their numbers are at best skewed. There are people that will tell you, and myself included, that the unemployment rate is closer to 14% than it is the 5%. That's number one. Number two, in order for us to sustain ourselves as a country, we need taxpayers, and we don't have the amount of taxpayers. Okay? So what is happening is the government gets out and said, hey, we created 220,000 jobs last month. What the media should be saying is, yeah, that's all fine and dandy. That's better than 219,000 jobs. But in order for us to sustain the way we have structured our economy, we need to create 330,000 jobs to 350,000 jobs. And oh, by the way, of those 220,000 jobs that were created the last month, somewhere around 180,000 of them were in the retail sector and service industry. We need the overwhelming majority of them created in the manufacturing sector. And one more thing before I forget, and this is fairly important. I cannot for the life of me believe that people are so gung-ho over having a socialist running for president. I mean, 20 years ago, if you would have told me this, that there was a front runner who was a socialist, I would have laughed like I am now. But it's a reality now, isn't it?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about the way they run the numbers. Again, the stock market, it's been propped up to make it look like we're doing great. The unemployment numbers, they tell us that we're around 5% roughly, I believe, unemployment. It's unbelievable. We're closer to at 29.5% unemployment right now because people aren't participating in the labor force. You know, we've only got 70.4% or so people in America. Of the 320 million Americans roughly we have here, only about 70.4% of them are actually working. And again, they're cooking the books. They're trying to make it all look like everything's better than it is. And that's just not the case. And again, as far as for this price of oil, why is the price of oil falling? It's because demand, obviously, is falling. People aren't going anywhere. If you don't have the additional income, you don't have a job to go to. You maybe are tightening your belt, and it's going to continue to drop. According to some economists. There we go. I always say that. Economists are saying that there's potentially no bottom for the price of oil. And I want to read some articles here I pulled up. First of all, the price of a gallon of milk is more than a price for 2 gallons of oil. I find that phenomenal because when you think about all the things that goes into the process of making oil, you got to refine it, you got to dig it out of the ground. It's very dangerous work. You got to do all these processes that I don't even know. But in the refinement process, also you load it into cargo ships, you ship it across the ocean, and then you bring it to America. It's got to go into, I'm assuming, some kind of tankers, and then they take those big fuel trucks and they go to a fuel station and pump it into your gas station. All of these things, it's cheaper for them to do that than it is for a farmer to milk a cow, pasteurize the milk, and send that to market. I mean, that is insane that it costs more money for milk, a gallon of milk, than 2 gallons of oil. What do you think about that, Tony?
Yeah, I'm with you on this. And the Saudis, and we talked about this, and I'm not going to get too much more in-depth into it, but as it stands, in January of 2016, 33% of the oil-related research development companies in the United States are on the verge of bankruptcy because they cannot pay the interest on their loans.
Man.
Now, you tell me that the Saudis did not sit there and have somebody analyze how they could put all of the American companies out of business that were making money? Bloomberg alone put 11,000 people out of on layoff, permanent layoff. I personally know a friend who when oil was about $40 a barrel, he was doing all right. He says, if it hits 50, I'm doing good. When it hit $150 a barrel, he's like, holy crap. Oh, I hit the mother lode. And look how fast he went from making money to losing money. He had to close his doors and shut down his operation and sell everything, and he lost big. His losses were in the hundreds of millions.
You know what's
crazy? They couldn't afford to pay anybody anymore. All those guys he had working, they're not working anymore. It's not like they left my friend's business and went around the corner and worked for that oil company.
Yeah.
That is a staggering. Think about that. One sector of the population that is employing people all of a sudden loses 33% of their people, and they're defaulting on their loans. And you know who's going to shoulder that loss? The taxpayers are shouldering that loss in the terms of unemployment compensation, welfare, and the like.
So it blows me away because one of the things that we're commonly told by the leftists out there is that oil is based upon speculation, and that's true to a degree. But they tell us that that supply and demand, it doesn't affect that market at all. That actually does not matter to the oil market because of speculators, and they demonize the oil market speculators. But this just goes to show you that supply and demand does actually affect this industry, and it's important to note that with all of the things that are happening with Saudi Arabia, if the speculators were the only thing determining the market, with Saudi Arabia and the tensions between them and Iran, you would assume that speculators would be driving the price of this commodity up because, oh my goodness, these two countries, these oil producing countries, they could go to war, and oh my gosh. But the issue is that the market has been flooded with a supply and there's a less of demand, and now we are seeing the price of this commodity drop like crazy. But hey, Tony, we actually got to cut to a commercial break, and I got to wrap this up and move to another segment. But
okay.
Do you have anything that you want to promote? Any website, social media, anybody can get at you on there or something?
No, I just I'm listening to your show, so I'm cool for now. I'm just kind of got my own little gig going on now, and I still do my little my Facebook page. It's Sounding Off for America on Facebook.
All right.
And we don't grow huge. We've been growing slowly and steadily, but we don't have all that liberal horse crap on there. We're like-minded people. We talk about prepping, Second Amendment, and the important things in life.
And that's facebook.com/groups/sounding.off. So please check them out. Join their group. Tony's a really good guy. Tell him I said hi, you say hi to him for me. Anyway, Tony, thank you so much for joining us, man. I really enjoyed you on the show, and I hope you come back again sometime, man.
Will do, Mac.
All righty.
Nice talking with you, too.
All righty. Take care. All right, guys. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and cut to a commercial break. When we come back, we have a lot of other things on the agenda that we're going to get to here. I want to talk about the massive layoffs and store closures. My guesses, again, all I can do is just look in my crystal ball. No, just read the tea leaves like everyone else and predict the civil unrest to come. I'm going to tell you some indicators of what you should be looking for to predict some bad things around the horizon. One of the main things that you can check. And I want to talk about the central banks wanting to move to a cashless society. So we got a lot of other stuff, too, to talk about. The Fed stopped processing the National Instant Check System, the background check system for firearms, the appeals for the denials that they've been doing. And I want to compare and contrast, if we have time, the impeachment of President Andrew Johnson, the actual climate, the political climate back then, compare it to today. If we got time for that, we'll get to it. So, and by the way, if you guys have anything you want to say, please feel free to join the conversation. The number of the show today is 360-450-5625. Again, 360-450-5625. You can message us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow or get us on Twitter @OnTheMoveShow. When I come back, I'm going to read your messages on Twitter. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, this is the third hour of the program. You are in the overdrive hour of On the Move. So we have on Twitter some responses to my call to you guys. By the way, call still goes out. Why do you hate the government? What have they done? What personal story do you have about the government infringing on your rights, or something they've done to piss you off? Have they told you you couldn't build something on your own property? Have they given you a frivolous violation? Have they done something that has annoyed you in some particular way? Why do you hate the government? Give us a call. The number of the show is 360-450-5625. You can message us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow, or you can get us on Twitter at OnTheMoveShow. Ken on Twitter says, our government makes laws for us but exempts themselves. That's one of the reasons why he hates the government. He said nothing personally himself other than fighting the VA. I'm guessing that's what he says. Fighting the VA, unconstitutional gun laws and ridiculous seatbelt laws. It's none of their damn business. And I completely agree. He goes on to say, I'm supposed to be a free American. There's so many laws that you don't even know when you're breaking a law anymore. I agree completely. We have a ridiculous amount of laws, and just look at the tax code. Just look at the tax code itself. You could be violating the tax code in so many different ways and not even know it, because it's like 71,000 pages, something like that. You have to hire a special accountant to do your taxes in most cases. If you go to H&R Block or one of those big tax companies, now those guys, by the way, are huge lobbyists for the government to expand the tax code even more. They want to prevent their big opposition to flat tax or fair taxes, things along those lines, because any simplification of the tax code will make it make that industry go away, essentially. You know, I mean, if you got rid of, if you made it so only you had to write, you know, a few lines, one sheet of paper to do your tax return, then those industries would go out of business. They couldn't sustain, because if you don't need to go get them, I mean, granted, I guess you could say that would be harmful to the economy because we lose jobs, but no, because the more money that people have in their pocket, the simpler it is. They could actually put it into productive industries instead of having to put it into an industry that is essentially a government industry. It may be private, yeah. It's a private industry that's there to teach you how to deal or to liaise you through dealing with the government. So, sorry if you're an accountant or a tax person at H&R Block. I'm sorry, but I don't like those jobs. You know, and if the tax code was simpler, your job wouldn't be needed. So, no offense, I'm just saying we could actually put our money into something that was actually productive to society instead of just trying to figure out how the government's going to steal your money this year. Anyway, so. Before we move here forward, I want to say here's an article I found on the Mirror, or mirror.co.uk. This article is written by Christy McCrum, article dated January 21, 2016. Oil price falls below $28 a barrel, less than the cost of an actual barrel. So just to clarify, I was looking up the prices of oil. I think it just went up to $32 a barrel, roughly. But at $28 a barrel, that's actually less than it costs to actually get a barrel itself. Oil prices affect our daily lives as consumers, drivers, and commuters, but the new 12-year low in the cost of a barrel is an unusual situation. With lifting sanctions against Iran, the market already oversupplied is expected to be flooded. It's the anticipation of which pushed the price of Brent crude down below $28 or 1960 euros on Monday. Bizarrely, that makes the cost of oil inside a barrel less than the cost of a barrel itself. But in the world where fossil fuels are finite, the worries about reserves of oil took a back seat as people took to Twitter to discuss what actually costs more than a barrel of oil. So they got all these people listing what costs more than a barrel of oil. Apparently, two large pizzas are cheaper than a barrel of oil. Said, well, that I would assume that they were. A barrel of WT crude is 3 times cheaper than a steel drum to put it in. Anywho, just thought I'd put that out there. Let's see, what are the next featured topics we'll move to here? Massive layoffs and store closures. So, first things first, Obama. You may be familiar during his State of the Union address. He said this, and you may be surprised.
Anyone claiming that America's economy is in decline is peddling fiction.
Okay, so anyone claiming that America's economy is in decline is peddling fiction. So apparently, I'm lying to you all. Don't trust our liar in chief. I'm sorry, trust our liar in chief. Don't trust me, and I'm not even asking you to trust me. FYI, everything I say, fact check it. You have the Google. You have the ability to do the Googling. Please, fact check me. If I'm wrong, I want a correction from you. In fact, I demand it. Please, tell me if I'm wrong. If you have some, I'm not going to take offense. I'm not going to feel like you stepped on my toes. Let me know, because I want to be correct. I try to be as thorough as possible in my research here. Now, granted, some things I'm giving you my opinion, and other things I'm presenting facts. I'm telling you where I got the source. So, as far as peddling fiction, I would say that this Obama administration is the fiction peddlers. Again, they're trying to tell you that all the fundamentals are good, like job creation. Again, the jobs that they're creating are, in fact, service industry jobs, which are low-paying jobs. They destroyed, through Obamacare and other regulations, they're destroying full-time employment and replacing it with part-time service industry employment. So they're making you now have to cover your own health care costs because you were laid off from your employer, many of you. So now you're not getting full-time employment, so your health care isn't covered, and you now have to pay out of pocket for your health care. It may be subsidized, but all that's doing is making your neighbor, someone else, pay for your health care. It's taking money out of their pocket. So subsidized doesn't mean free. It means someone else is paying for it. And that someone else may be having hard times themselves, and probably very likely are. So job creation, a joke. Job security, well, I'm about to tell you why job security is essentially non-existent in America. Let me tell you, dailyjobcuts.com. This is a website where it will tell you it's your source for daily job news. And let me just schmooze through the layoffs section. Let's see, in January 23rd, there were 829 layoffs at Sprint Overland Park campus. There was Chicago Public Schools had 227 administrative staffs that were laid off. Stennis Space Center layoffs are coming. WM Ware report 900 layoffs possible next week. University of Montana laying off 27. That's just on the 23rd of January. 22nd, let's see, I'm just going to name some big. Boeing doing slows production of 747s. Let's see, they're doing some layoffs as well. Chicago Public Schools, more layoffs. Let's see if some big companies here. United States Steel Corporation, 679 temporary layoffs. We got on the 19th of January, Tiffany's doing some job cuts. Noble Corp, 100 offshore drilling jobs are being laid off. Yahoo staffers fear 20 to 25% layoff of its workforce. Johnson & Johnson laying off 3,000 in the device division. Let's see, January. This is more January. I'm just going to go through some of these. Sam's Club is laying off 120 corporate employees. Wells Fargo, 121 IT nationwide. Zeusk, 40. Warren Steel Holdings, 162 temporary layoffs, now permanent. Let's see. Goldman Sachs laying off 250 layoffs are likely. GoPro, 7% of workforce, or 100. Aeropostale, 100. Finner, 20% job cuts in ECS Americas. GE in Europe, 6,500 laid off. Whew, wow, that's crazy. Okay, Intrepid, 35 plus. Sprint Aereo Systems, some temporary layoffs become permanent. This just goes on and on and on and on. Right now, things are not good. We got Pier 1 having huge layoffs, and there's been some store closures, I believe. Golf Galaxy, Walmart, I discussed that last week. Macy's. And this was pointed out by one of our listeners, D. I want to shout out to D. Thanks for this info, because I did some research on this, and this is actually insane. So Macy's is closing down their stores in some malls around the country. And this is fascinating, the cascading effect that this has. Again, Macy's is a big draw in some of these malls. And what happens when Macy's picks up shop and closes is it cascades to some of these other marginal stores that get business because people come into bigger stores like Macy's. And what this actually does, if a Macy's pulls out, it can actually cause an entire mall to shut down. So not only just are you factoring in the employees that work at Macy's, but also the other people who work in the mall, because they may be out of business too if the entire mall shuts down. Pretty insane. And then, there's so many more. Store closures, layoffs. You're seeing it right now, and this is not because of anything. I mean, there's probably a lot of reasons for it, but the primary reason is the dropped consumer demand. Same thing that's happening with oil. We had a huge disappointment when it came to retail sales for 2015, and we're seeing it more. We're seeing it more now. People are losing their jobs. People have less money. People maybe had a full-time job, now it's a part-time job. You just have less money to spend, so demand goes down. People don't have money for discretionary spending. You don't. And maybe the things that you needed are changing. Maybe you used to need to have something, and now you consider that a want, and you're changing what your needs are, so demand is falling. And what will happen if this continues, and we don't see a collapse of the dollar? This would be considered deflation. If all of these bubbles essentially burst, and people just don't have money. If you don't have money, you hit a deflationary period where prices for things drop because people aren't buying them. So, stock market bubble, the auto loan bubble, the housing bubble, when those collapse, that'll cascade through other areas, just like, what we're seeing now. But if you don't have money to spend, people will have to drop the prices so you can afford to buy them. Unless we enter into inflation, where that does the opposite, increases the price. So, but if you just don't have money, then the price of goods will drop when these bubbles drop as well, and that is a buyer's market. So, like I said, if you're planning on buying some property, I mean, if it'll get you out of the city, I would say that that's a good idea. I would say you should probably do it if it'll get you out of the city, because you don't want to be in the city. Again, you have to think about what happened during the Great Depression in the past. And at that time, there was a large percentage of Americans at that time, comparatively speaking to today, that either worked in the agricultural industry or had land to farm. They lived in rural areas to where they could farm to supplement your food. If you don't live in a place that has a big enough area, if you don't have a couple acres, you can't grow. I mean, you can maybe have a small garden, but if you live in an apartment like me, I mean, you're pretty screwed. I live in a small town, but it's not. It's still, I don't have a field that belongs to me that I can farm in, and I'm not alone. Apparently, 98% of Americans are in a similar situation. Less than 2% of Americans are involved in agriculture. So, if we see a Great Depression, food is going to be scarce. That's why I'm recommending that you invest in food. But another thing is that you want to have something to protect what you have. And that's something that the government doesn't like. The government has been trying very hard to attack the right to keep and bear arms. And again, one of the latest attacks is they're saying that automobile industries and pharmaceutical industries, they're able to be sued if their product causes a death. So maybe we should make it so weapon manufacturers should be able to be sued if their product causes a death. This is a very dishonest argument that I would like to just point out. First of all, as I've said before, weapons are tools, and they are nothing else. But they are tools designed to kill. That's their job. If the tool functions properly, it kills. So what people are being sued for, auto manufacturers, pharmaceutical manufacturers, what they get sued for is when their product malfunctions and results in somebody being killed. Now, I think that if you're a firearms manufacturer and somebody bought your gun and they were at the range and it exploded in their hands, resulting in them being killed, I think they should be able to be sued. However, I don't think that if somebody takes the tool that this company produces and uses it to take a life unjustly, that manufacturer should be sued. Just like I don't think a pharmaceutical company would be and are not liable for being sued if somebody takes that product and overdoses intentionally or uses some kind of rat poison to kill somebody. That rat poison company shouldn't be liable to be sued if somebody uses their product in a way other than intended. Again, the product functioned the way it was intended to function. They just used it improperly. And again, an auto manufacturer is not going to be liable to be sued if somebody takes a car and drives it into a crowd. Nothing malfunctioned. They just used it to kill. It's a very dishonest argument, and don't let your friends, your statist friends, get away with it. Don't let anyone who's perpetuating this nonsense get away with it. Call them out on it. But you're going to want to have a gun. You're going to want to have ammo. Those things will be in high demand as well. So again, while you can, buy food. I'm recommending the food in 5-gallon buckets. It lasts for decades as long as you keep it dry and airtight. Get those oxygen absorbers, throw them in there. Seal that up in a Mylar bag. You got 25, 30 days of food for a 5-gallon bucket. You're going to need to have some other stuff to fill it in there, basically, to cover protein and caloric intake and all your vitamins and minerals and stuff like that. But you need something to protect all this. Get a gun. Get some ammo. If I had to choose right now, if I was a new gun owner, I don't have any guns. I'm in the store and I'm trying to figure out what I want to buy as a gun. Many of you may be in that position. I would buy a 12-gauge shotgun. That's where I would go. If that was the only one I could afford, because they're cheap as far as price. You can get one for under $200. So that's pretty awesome. You can hunt with it. You can get buckshot and actually take down big game, or you can use buckshot to actually defend yourself in your home. It's a home defense weapon, and it's pretty freaking awesome at home defense, especially if you're not a great shot. You don't have a lot of money to spend on ammo to go to the range to practice and shoot. I recommend you do practice, at least get familiar with the weapon, but it allows you to have a little bit of leeway in your accuracy. You can shoot down a hallway, and you can pretty much know that anything you hit in that, or anything in that hallway is going to get hit. Anything in that hallway is not going to still be standing there posing a threat to you. So I would go with the shotgun. One issue, and if your concern is traveling, if you think that you're going to have to bug out, first of all, one thing you need to tie down now. You need to tie down this loose end. If you live in a city, where are you going to go if the city goes into civil unrest? And that's where our next conversation is here, because we're going to be experiencing civil unrest. I can guarantee it. With the fact that Black Lives Matter movement and all this other stuff is primed, it's a powder keg ready to blow. I mentioned earlier the entitlement society, the people who think that they are owed your labor. They're owed that favor. They think that you have to provide them with food. They're entitled to your labor to get food because in their mind, you owe this to them. It's not a favor to them. You owe it. And if you don't give it, they're going to burn this mother down. So I want you to imagine what will happen if the dollar collapses and we get to the point where the government isn't here to send checks anymore. The people that are on this entitlement society, this welfare state, they're on the teat, and they are dependent and expected. Look, I have nothing against people on welfare, on food stamps. I have nothing against that whatsoever. All right. If you're on it, that is not a judgment on you. What is a judgment on you, and what I will judge you for, is you're expecting this. You're demanding this. And if that money stopped coming in, if you would go burn down your city, burn down your neighbor's house, do acts of violence, riot in the street like Rodney King riots back in the day, except on a national level in the cities, every city in America, if you would be one of those people that would do that or would join into it, then yeah, I'm judging you. If that's you, which, again, if you're listening to this program, I doubt you're one of the people that would be doing that. But I digress. As far as why you're going to need a firearm, it's going to be because of that. So you need to tie down those two things. Number one, get a gun, get ammo, figure out what your purpose is. If you're stationary in close quarter combat, a shotgun's great. If you're going to travel and you need to conceal, a handgun's good. I would recommend something above 40 caliber. My personal opinion is you'll never regret, especially if you are capable of shooting it, you'll never regret getting a 45. It'll put down anything that you need to put down. It will stop any threat. So I don't think that you'll regret getting a 45, although 40 caliber handguns are pretty good too. I like them, but I wouldn't go after anything below 40. That's just me. Some people like 9mm. I don't personally prefer them. Because if somebody, for example, is a major threat, especially anything below 9mm, you're not going to have the stopping power. If somebody's hopped up on drugs, some PCP or something like that, and they're bum rushing towards you, and they can't feel pain, there's not enough impact with a 9mm to knock them on their butt. There's not enough pounds per square inch to knock them on their butt. You may kill them, but you might not kill them before they get to you if they're charging at you. So if your wound didn't instantly kill them and it caused them to just bleed out, you may be in some trouble. They may get to you and be able to cause damage to you or your family. You want whatever you shoot at to go down. So that's why I recommend a 45. If you're going in the way of a handgun, I recommend a 45. They're more expensive. 40 caliber is a cheaper alternative, though. That's a good alternative. If you shoot somebody with a 40 or 45, they're going to fall. They're going to, just for the pounds per square inch that's hitting them, they're going to fall. And that's what you want to do. You want to put them on their butt. And if you think that you're going to be traveling and you don't necessarily think that it's going to be a close quarter scenario, and you're not concerned about concealment, then a good battle rifle is the way to go as well. So if your idea is to be out, in the country or something, you want to be able to eliminate targets that are 300 yards away or something like that. It's somewhere between 50 and 300 meters. That would be a good thing to invest in, a rifle. And again, with a rifle, you can take down bigger game. It can be used to hunt with and whatnot. So you can provide a source of food through your weapon and your ammunition, and it's going to be in demand. So it wouldn't hurt to have a couple of these laying around if you can afford it. But it all depends on what you want. It all depends on what your needs are and how you're going to be utilizing it. But the next thing you need to lock down is, where are you going to go? If you're in the city, if you're in a population center, you can't afford the money to move your family out. You have a high-paying job or something, or a good enough job in the city, and you can't afford the commute. You just can't do it. You can't do it to your family. I get it. But where are you going to go? If the cities are on fire, if the welfare checks stop coming in, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? Talk to your friends. Talk to your family. Make some connection where all of us know somebody that lives 20, 30 minutes outside the city. You have to know somebody in your area. If you don't, find somebody. You have to start connecting with your community. You have to. Because if you don't, you're going to be up a river without a paddle. You don't want to be to steal a reference from Kingpin, the movie, one of my favorite movies. You don't want to be Munsoned. So, look, all I'm saying is take a little bit of time and do this for you. And things to look for that some precursors. You may just want to take your family on a little trip outside the city just in case if you see these things starting to happen. Is EBT card outages or EBT card. And for those of you who aren't aware, EBT cards is basically the little debit card that they load the food stamp money on. Okay, so there's a website that I went to here. Let me try to find that again here. EBT outages. I'm typing this in Google. There we go. It's called downdetector.com. I love this website because it gives me some pretty awesome insight as to what's going on with SNAP EBT. It's, again, by the way, just to point out here, SNAP is called Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program. It means it's supposed to supplement your nutrition. It's supposed to supplement. And what that word mean? What does supplement mean? Here, you know what? I'll actually look it up on dictionary.com because this is one of my favorite things to do here. Dictionary.com. What does the word supplement mean? Just in case, I'm getting it wrong. Supplement. Let's see. What's the word here?
Supplement or supplement.
One more time.
Supplement or supplement.
Something added to a complete, or something added to complete a thing. Supply a deficiency or reinforce or extend a hole, which means that the SNAP program is not designed to provide 100% of your food needs. It's meant to supplement your food needs. You're supposed to be buying your own food, and the way this program is intended, again, I disagree with the fact that anybody is stealing money, using the coercive force of government to steal money and give it to somebody else. I don't like that. I disagree with it in principle. But the idea is that they're supposed to have other money, and this is supposed to supplement where they're deficient. So, anyway, downdetector.com. This is what you need to keep your eyes on, gang. As you hear more turmoil in the economy, as the days go, I'm checking this as often as I can. I have this bookmarked, and I'm coming back to it because it's incredibly important. This will tell you what you need to worry about for civil unrest purposes. The people that have SNAP and EBT cards loaded, you're going to know that if this starts going down, and one of my favorite parts about this is it's actually linked to your Facebook, and I can see what was posted 6 hours ago. So from people on Facebook, and it has like where they're at. I was supposed to get my benefits 7 days ago. Now I don't have food. What am I supposed to do? See, this is Katie on here. This is posted on the 22nd. This isn't supposed to be your entire amount of money for food. This is supposed to supplement. Now I don't have money for food. What am I supposed to do? Here's another one. Samara. My stamps weren't on my card, and they come faithfully on the 23rd of each month. I went to the store this morning, and I was totally embarrassed. Look, this is the kind of stuff that you're going to see. You're going to see people go to the store. They're going to try to pay for something with their SNAP card, and the money's not there. And they're going to be pissed. They're going to be embarrassed. They're going to make a big deal about it in the store. You're going to see probably what will happen in the stores themselves is they'll have lines that are EBT only, and lines that are, probably, and this was actually, if I remember Prepper Recon, he made a book. It's the Economic Collapse Chronicles. Oh my gosh, that book is amazing. It's an audiobook, phenomenal. It's got a PDF. It's got the physical copies you can buy on Amazon. The Economic Collapse Chronicles, I believe, is what it's called. But it's a 3-part trilogy, and it talks about what would happen during an economic collapse. And I completely agree. This guy has got some major bombs of knowledge he's dropping in this book as far as the steps of the progression. But one of the things they'll probably end up doing is the companies will say, we're not going to accept EBT in this line, cash and credit card only. And then, somebody may, and this happened in the book, somebody may throw a stink about that, and then they'll say, okay, well, now we have an EBT only line where you have, all of your EBT people over here or something along those lines. So people are going to throw up a stink because they're embarrassed, they're pissed off. They don't use this as a supplemental program for their food, for their nutrition. What they're using it is this is their entirety of their nutrition income. This is everything they have to buy for food. So not only are they embarrassed, they're pissed off that the food's not there. And obviously it's going to be a big to-do when these people don't because they're pissed already. They're not going to put the groceries back. Some grocer is going to have to do that, some stock boy. And on top of that, you may see people rioting right there at the grocery stores. Again, this is why you want to accelerate your preps now. This is why you do not want to wait until the stuff hits the fan. Caught myself there. You don't want to wait until the stuff hits the fan, because if you do, you're going to be going to the grocery stores that are having the riots. You don't want to have to go out. You want to bug in. Wait until it blows over. Let them kill each other. Look, I know it's not a good way to go about talking about this. I know that may be a little harsh, but I'm telling you, this is what we're at right now. We are at again, I'm not saying that, I'm not calling for a revolution or a civil war, but there is a culture war that is happening here in America. And it's consisting of people who live in cities and people who live in countries and the different cultures associated with. You're not going to see the rioting that on the kind of level that you're going to see in the cities in the country. The country, it's just a different culture. People in the country are different than the people in the cities. And it's a lot safer of a place. And you have the people like you people who believe in the same kind of principles and have moral values and things along that line living in the country. And for the most part, the people in the city, that's why city population centers are typically Democrat, because their moral values are not the same. And I'm speaking in generalities. I know I'm not speaking for everyone. If you live in a city, I'm not condemning you. If you don't fall into this category and you live in a city, get out. Get out now, because you're the minority and you will be eaten alive. Get out. If you actually have a moral code, if you believe in the non-aggression principle, essentially where you don't steal somebody's property or hurt other people, then you're the minority. Typically what the cities believe, and they're full of status, is what is moral is what the government says I can do legally. That's it. If the government says it's okay, then I can do it. And if there's no government around to tell me that I can't do it or stop me from doing it, I'll do whatever I want. That's the entitlement mentality. So we're in for it. Downdetector.com. I mean, I could do a whole show. Honestly, I could do an entire friggin' show on just the comments, the 2,123 comments from Facebook posters on here talking about their SNAP benefits not working. And you can follow and track the outages around the country. This is going to be your roadmap for things to come. This is going to be how you'll know. Okay, by the way, we have a comment here. Ken on Twitter, he tells us, Mac, look up the ballistics on a 9mm with modern hollow point ammunition. If you're referring to hollow points, yeah. Hollow points do have more pound per square inch, I agree, because it spreads over a higher surface area, especially if you're shooting hydroshock ammunition. I'm not denying that it could knock somebody down. But if some big 250-pound man on meth or PCP or something is rushing towards you, I'm going to feel a lot more. This is just my personal opinion. And I'm not belittling. If you got a 9mm, good on you, man. Good on you for having something, especially hollow point. Hollow points are great. Hollow points are great. It spreads, it basically eggshells when it hits a target, so it spreads out over a larger surface area, which it has more impact. It has more pound. Basically, a higher velocity, not velocity. Basically, it also does more damage too, because it's covering more of a surface area. But I digress. 9mm are great, but again, I want the feet per square inch to hit that person and knock them down. And yeah, a 9mm may kill a guy, but it also may kill a guy 20 minutes from now. It may not kill them, right now. So that's why I want them to fall down, because it gives me an opportunity to get away. And I don't think that you would argue, Ken, that 45 caliber bullets are more effective at knocking people down than 9mm. I don't think you would argue that. But regardless, even if you got a 22, I'm not belittling you. I want you guys to know any gun is a good gun. As long as it shoots, as long as it can shoot and shoot straight and won't blow up in your hands, any gun is a good gun. You should have a gun. Have as many guns as you need, have as many calibers as you can. That way, if you stumble across somebody who's willing to trade you, a gun, ammunition for a caliber, hopefully it's a caliber you have. By the way, I didn't mention this, but 22 caliber, it's really awesome. And I think it'll be somewhat of a currency if we enter into a barter system, because you can hunt small game with it, and it's very lightweight, very small. You can get a lot of it. It's been harder to get recently, but you can get a lot of it for cheap right now. In the past, back in the day, I remember you used to be able to get 1,000 rounds of 22 for like $20. I'm just kicking myself for not investing, hundreds of dollars into 22 ammo. I'd be a rich man right now. Anyway, so as far as what's to come, check the downdetector.com website I was telling you about. I think that was the name of Down Detector. Again, that is going to be one primary way that you can know that things are hitting the fan. Because, again, the government's not going to tell these people, we didn't load your SNAP benefit cards. You're not going to see it on the news. You'll hear about it after the fact, maybe, if the mainstream media is willing to report on it. More likely, you're going to hear about the mainstream media reporting on the riots and probably obfuscating the reasons behind it. I don't know. Maybe it's because of something else. I don't know. Some police shot some unarmed black guy. Maybe that's the reason why the riot's happening. And yeah, it'll probably be taken over by, some movement or something. But that's the thing about people who are calling for civil unrest or an overthrow of the government. These movements, instability, violent movements, unrest. They're easily taken over by more radical leftist, big government sides. It's just dangerous, and that's why I'm not a fan of the idea of a civil war or against the statist, or a revolution against the government. I'm not a fan of that because, first of all, revolutions, historically speaking, don't end well. And our country, the revolution we had here was different because people came here to get away from the oppressive governments. And honestly, we don't have that anymore. I think we're beginning to see ourselves be outnumbered. The statists have taken over our educational system, and they have indoctrinated a lot more people than I really did understand. I mean, Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders are running neck and neck, essentially, within the margin of error in places like Iowa, New Hampshire. I mean, it's insane. There are a lot of people who are either calling themselves socialists or at least willing to vote for a socialist. And this is that dynamic. Now we're leaving the cities to get away from the oppressive governments and heading to the countryside. And it's created this culture shift. And this is what I think will happen. I think they're trying to close or to get rid of the American government. I think they want to destroy it. I don't understand how else they could do that. And you have to ask yourself, why would they want to destroy? Why would the statists and the globalists, why would they want to destroy something they already own? Well, they control it. It's theirs. It's their baby. Why would they want to destroy what they already have? And as George Soros, big scary dude, George Soros, he's already said that America is the largest stumbling block in the way of a global government, of a new world order. So that's why they want to destroy it. They want to destroy it, make us a third world country, not relevant, and then replace the world hegemon. And a hegemon is basically the leading world power. It's a power that's essentially undisputed, and that's what America has been historically here for a while. They want to replace it, and they want to create a new global government. And what are you going to do when let's war game this? Let's plan this out a little bit here, okay? The cities are on fire. You're talking massive casualties in cities. The statists are killing themselves and anyone caught in their path. Essentially gangs are going to be propping up, and there's going to be territory being taken over, and all the people that are basically not in part of a huge group of armed people are going to be wiped out, essentially, if they can't get out in time. They're going to be wiped out. So the statists themselves, the people who outnumber us in the cities, they're going to all kill themselves. Not kill themselves, but kill each other. And that's, in my opinion, that's what's going to happen. They're going to kill themselves out, and pretty soon the people in the country are going to outnumber the statists in this country. The people in the cities who have been indoctrinated to believe in statism, they're going to be gone. And what's going to be left? It's going to be people like you, going to be people like me, hopefully, if I'm lucky, if we're lucky. Not me, but you too, if we're lucky. And the people that live in the country that have these values that I was talking about, they're who is going to be left. And you guys recognize, if I'm talking to you, if you're included in this, you recognize that the big government is a problem. That's why you live in the country. That's why you don't want to be in the city. You are closer to the founding generation than you might realize. I think if that happens, the question then is, what happens when the United Nations or some big global umbrella of a government comes in, whether or not they're wearing blue helmets or not, they operate underneath the name of a global government, or maybe a regional world government where it's, the North American Union government or the South American, or whatever it is. It's not the United States of America. It's not your state and local governments. All the U.S. governments are gone, collapsed. Again, Washington, D.C., that's the capital. It's going to be gone. It's going to be a freaking war zone for months. And there's going to be, maybe our government's going to be sitting in bunkers somewhere, hiding, waiting until the coast is clear to poke their nose out. But I ask you, if they step out of the bunkers, are you going to submit to their authority then? Are you going to submit to the authority of a global government? Are you going to submit to a regional global government? I won't. I'm telling you right now, if I see foreign troops in America, I'm considering an invasion. And I'm going to be talking about how do we fight this foreign occupation. That's the conversation I'll be having at that point. And I may get thrown into some kind of concentration camp. I may be offed just for talking about my point of view, expressing my freedom of speech. Honestly, I think this is something that you guys need to be aware of, because there will be movements. There will be the Tories out there, just like there were in the Revolutionary War days, that supported a centralization of power, supported a government thousands of miles away, their authority over people who, the reason why they were there in the first place was to get away from all that. And that's what people in the country are there for. They moved out of there or live out there because they don't want to be a part of the statism, the modern-day Tories. So let's talk specifically here about some of these central banker moves, some of the things that I think you need to know about that are coming up. Central bankers are actually in the process of trying to move us to a cashless society, because one of the things that they really are kind of annoyed about, they're a little peeved about, is places like Greece. Greece, they put that block on how much you could pull out of your bank account if you live in Greece, and they basically said you could only do, I think it was about $400 a month. And what's happened, little by little, people were pulling their money out of the bank accounts in Greece, and they're stuffing it in their mattress, and they're pulling this wealth out of the stock market, or I'm sorry, out of the bankers' hands, not the stock market, the bank hands. And what this is doing is preventing the bail-in that they're going to try to do. So the whole idea is if they can move to essentially, you've heard of Bitcoin, they want to do essentially a Fed coin, and they want in on this digital currency action. And the way that they think this is a great idea is that they'll have 100% control of the currency. You won't be able to pull the currency out. You can't hold it in your hand. So that's a danger when it comes to Bitcoin. There's no freaking way I would ever put money into a Fed coin. That's crazy. The entire idea and the reason why you want to get into Bitcoin is to have an alternate currency that the government and central banking cartel can't touch. They can't get into. It's outside of their realm of control. So to this end, the central bankers, this is an article on voiceofliberty.com dated December 18, 2015. Central bankers are looking into issuing their own digital currencies. Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, I think is how you say that. Why leave the money to the marketplace when you can own and use digital currencies backed by the full faith and credit of the central government? Raise your hand if you're a Bitcoin fan who wants to jump on the central bank digital currency bandwagon. No hands? Why not? One of the central ideas behind the development of Bitcoin was to break the monopoly of central issuance of currency. Yes, Bitcoin also has many benefits as a payment system and makes it easier to transfer value between and among individuals than through the banking system, but it was primarily designed to overcome the problem that central issuers of currency tend to abuse their money-creating privileges to benefit themselves and their cronies. So again, that's why you should oppose this, first of all. But second of all, it gives you no ability to pull your money out and stuff it into that mattress. You know, when you are in such a critical time that we're in right now, we have to have an ability to protect ourselves from the bank stealing our money. It's your money. You're giving it to why do you give your money to the bank? And again, I'll say it again before. If you haven't already done this, pull your money out of the bank. If you have any wealth at all that you want to protect, pull it out. At least have the cash. I've already told you this episode, everything that you should be investing in. But at least have the cash. Because it may not be there. It may actually be gone when you go to get it. So, in terms of why you put your money in the bank, why do you actually do that? Security, right? So that, first of all, I mean, you can have access digitally and be able to put money in that way. And I would recommend, obviously keep the money that you need in the bank account that you need to pay bills. If that's how you pay, if you pay it through, electronic, payment systems, some form or another out of that, then yeah, keep that. Don't pull money out that you need to pay a bill unless you can pay it in cash. But everything else, take it out. Because the idea that you're keeping your money in the bank for security is laughable. It's laughable. The money in the bank is far less secure than the money in your home. If you had money under your bed, all right, under your mattress, how often has your home been broken into? All right? How often has your home been broken into? Probably not very often unless you live in a high crime neighborhood. But I'm 30 years old. My house has never ever been broken into. I count my lucky stars. I'm looking around for some wood to knock on, thinking this is a bookshelf right next to me. Knock on wood. So, but I'm more than likely probably not going to have my house robbed. And even if I do, okay, good luck finding anything that I have. I mean, I don't. And on top of that, you may be wasting a trip because I'm not exactly a wealthy guy. So, anyway. But also, I mean, it's not even like you're getting interest off of your bank's savings account or anything. I mean, the interest rate is ridiculous. You're not making money by putting money in a bank. So keep your money. If you don't need it in there to pay bills, take it out. Have access to your money. You don't want to be caught with your pants down on this one. So let's see here. We got a couple more topics I want to get to here, and here we go. I'll go straight to the next one here. The feds are they stopped processing NICS, the National Instant Background Check System's denial appeals. So this is an article on NRAILA.org. Let's see, 22nd January 2016, written by. No clue. Didn't put a author on it anywhere I can see. So anyway, let's see. This is okay. They're saying as much as the Brady campaign, Bloomberg's Every Town, and the Obama administration contend that submitting oneself to the FBI National Instant Criminal Background Check System is a fast and simple process that does not significantly burden lawful firearm transfers. The fact is that for many Americans, that simply isn't true. Each year, thousands of Americans are wrongfully denied their Second Amendment rights when NICS NICS incorrectly determines that they are prohibited from firearm ownership. Compounding this grave injustice this week, the FBI made public that they have stopped processing NICS denial appeals. In what was dubbed as a makeshift reorganization in January 20, USA Today article, employees tasked with reviewing NICS appeals have been temporarily reassigned to assist with the considerable increase in background checks. Now, why is there considerable increase in background checks? Again, that's because of things like Bloomberg's efforts, I-594, SB 94, where they criminalize the transfer of possession, not ownership, but the possession. So I hand you a gun, you need a background check. You hand it back to me, we need a background check. Again, does nothing to lower violent crime deaths. It does nothing at all to do that. In fact, criminals don't even submit to this because by mere definition, criminals don't follow the law. But anyway, the government is saying basically that they're going to hire 230 more examiners and other staff to help process NICS checks. Look, this system is already backed up, and you're talking about when this whole background check thing, first of all, stupid. Stop compromising with these background check people. Background checks don't work. They're not going to stop crime. Criminals don't submit to them. Let's stop compromising our rights away. These people aren't the gun grabbers that are saying background checks. Background checks don't do anything at all. All they do is they create a black market for people to buy guns on, and all that does is create a big bureaucracy. These background checks creates a big bureaucracy, costs taxpayer money to oversee, and it has the potential, and it does here, deny people the right to keep and bear arms. According to this article, there have been a backlog of 7,100 denials, appeals of those denials. We're not even just talking about just the amount of denied people, the people appealing the denial. I'm pretty sure that if you're appealing a denial, it's very likely that you probably actually should have the right to keep and bear arms, because it's a crime. It's a federal felony to apply for a gun that you're not allowed to have as a felon. So 7,100 people are denied that, and they are appealing it. Are you seriously telling me that the majority of these people probably aren't supposed to be able to get a gun? They're probably not felons, or they're being frivolously denied and blocked from their right to keep and bear arms? I would argue that most of these people probably should. And now that they're not having any way to go through this, they're getting rid of they're just not processing the NICS denials. They're not processing any of the appeals. What happened to due process? We have a right to due process. There literally is no process for them to appeal their denial. We have to stop compromising. Have to. I can't stress this enough. And if not for the fact that what these people are saying won't change a damn thing, it won't do anything to affect violence, if for the simple reason, the philosophical reason behind why this government was created, we all agree that this government was created based upon the foundational principle. I'm talking about the Declaration of Independence, that the government governs through the consent of the people. And if you agree with that, then you understand that this government was created by people coming together into a group and saying that we're going to create a government that is going to protect our life, liberty, and property. That's the purpose of this government, to protect life, liberty, and property, because it's easier for a collective of people to protect individual rights of everyone in the collective than it is for every individual to have to protect their rights from everyone else. All right? So you work with your neighbors communally. I don't have any problem with working as a collective, but what I have a problem with is collectivism, saying that the collective has more rights than the individual, because we came together as a collective to protect the individual rights. If you're going to go ahead and start saying collectives suddenly have more rights than individuals, I don't even understand your logic behind that. It's illogical. There is no such thing as collective rights. Collective rights are individuals in a group asserting individual rights together. Collectives don't have more rights than individuals. It's unbelievable. So with that said, that's our show today. I certainly appreciate you all tuning in, and I just want to say thank you, and I hope I'm wrong about all this, and I don't think I am. I'm not a Nostradamus. I don't have a crystal ball. I see what's there, and I'm just giving you guys my opinion, and I really hope that you're taking this seriously. Protect yourself, protect your family. Take these measures I've talked about to, again, don't put yourself in a hard financial position because of something I said, but take some measures, something you can afford to do. I've given you a lot of options. Anyway, that's our show. Again, I want to thank Tony Clark for listening and tuning in today, joining us as a guest especially. That was really awesome. And thank you guys for listening. You guys, MagPack, you're the tip of the spear. Thank you so much. Don't forget to check us out on our website, onthemoveshow.com. Follow us on Spreaker.com/onthemoveshow. Like us on Facebook.com/onthemoveshow. Follow us on Twitter.com/onthemoveshow. Subscribe to us on YouTube.com/onthemoveshow. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.